I'd like to turn it over to our current, until we reorganize, chairman, Mr. Robert Hanez.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Listen, you know what? Now that I officially resigned, I can be honest about everything. No, I'm only kidding. I just want to say, listen, thanks, everybody. You know, how many years was it? How many?
12, probably 11,
12?
12.
I thought it was like 372 years. I'm not sure. But anyways, listen, it was great. And the board's tremendous. The planning department's great. You know, I just want to say thanks to everybody. You know, I'm off to other things now, and I can't be on the board. But listen, I appreciate everything everybody's done. A lot of hard work. People don't believe it, but the board does a lot of work, and the department does a great amount of work. So, you know, keep it up. And I will keep monitoring this, make sure you don't screw up. But all right. But I want to thank you. In all honesty, I want to thank everybody for being there and putting up with my stuff all for the last 12 years. All right. So you guys be good. And anything you ever need, please give me a call. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you, everybody.
Good
Be
luck.
good.
Thank you, Bob.
All right.
We're gonna really miss you.
I'll miss you guys. Melissa's right. It was a love-hate thing. You know, sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate being on the board, sometimes you love being on the board. So, all right. So listen, take care. Be good, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you, Bob. Don't be a stranger. Okay, so we have a fairly big agenda tonight. I will turn it over to our vice chair, Erin Joyce, and she can get started with the matters on the agenda.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the planning board meeting on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020, starting at 6 p.m. via Zoom. This is being recorded, as was mentioned earlier. The first thing on our agenda, do we have to take a roll call, Melissa, to open the meeting?
Yes, please.
We will go through a roll call vote just to open the meeting. Member McCamey?
Here.
Member Downey?
Here.
Member Baker?
Present.
Member Grove?
Here.
And Member Joyce is also here. The first public hearing does not start until 6:15, so we have about 10 minutes here. At 6 o'clock, we have a discussion for reorganization of the board, which is triggered by the stepping down of the chairman. So we have to reorganize a little bit here.
I would like to nominate Erin Joyce to be the new chair of the Braintree Planning Board.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion for a new chair appointment, seconded by Member Baker. Does anybody wish to have any discussion on that, or we can just take a vote? All right, we'll do a roll call vote for that. Member McCamey?
Yes.
Member Downey?
Yes.
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Grove?
Yes.
I suppose I would recuse myself from that vote. All right. All right, so then we need a new vice chair.
I would like to recommend Member Baker as the new vice chair of the Braintree Planning Board.
Member Baker, are you on board with that?
Yeah.
All right, do we have a second?
After that enthusiastic, yes, I think it was kind of a shrug, but yes, I'll second that.
Okay, second that. All right, roll call vote. Member McCamey?
Yes.
Member Downey? You're a yes, right, Member Downey?
Yes.
Member Grove?
Yes.
I also am a yes. So that is that, I think. So we have myself, Erin Joyce, as chair. Member Baker is moving into the vice chair. Member McCamey is still clerk. Member Downey is a sitting member. And then Member Grove, have you been moved up to member? Are you still alternate? Is that still in the process?
I haven't had any formal notification. The mayor I believe the mayor suggested it, but I don't know as the council has voted on it.
Madam Chair, if I may, on behalf of the mayor's office, first, congratulations to you and Mr. Baker on your appointments this evening. Looking forward to working with both of you. The mayor did send a recommendation to the council that Mr. Grove be elevated to member. That is scheduled to go before the Committee of Ways and Means on Thursday evening, and then back to the full council for a vote on the 17th. So we expect that to be lined up in advance of the December meeting with a nomination for a new alternate to follow.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, I think that is that the only thing we needed to do for the reorganization, Melissa?
Yep, that's it, Madam Chair. Yep.
We have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to move down on the agenda to new business. We have the 2021 Planning Board meeting schedule. If members have had a chance to review that, if anybody has any conflicts that they know of right now, if you could just let us know, bring it up. If not, a motion to move forward and approve the 2021 Planning Board schedule.
I'll move for the acceptance of the 2021 meeting schedule.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, roll call. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes,
and myself, yes.
Yes.
All right. Connor, is Connor on here? Connor.
Yeah, let me kill my audio here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry about that. So we only have one petition for this November. We have a remand pursuant to land court order dated October 16, 2020. The board has seen this before and they have made a recommendation. In short, the description, the petitioner is authorized to modify its former proposed 4-story 35-unit residential building with the Zoning Board of Appeals. The remand petition filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals modifies the project to a 30-unit age-restricted 4-story multifamily dwelling. The project seeks variances from sections 135, 701 for the number of stories. 3 stories allowed by right, 4 stories are proposed. In section 135, 705 multifamily dwellings for the amount of open space that is provided pursuant to 135, 407 of the Braintree zoning bylaw. The staff recommendation is fairly lengthy. In short, staff recommends favorable action.
So Connor, if you could just a quick summary. This is a project that I don't think we mentioned the address, but 99 to 107 Hancock Street, and it was previously before the ZBA.
Correct. Yes, it was before the ZBA, and ultimately was denied. And then the applicant appealed it to the land court. And this October, we were notified that it was going to be remanded.
So it'll be going back to the ZBA.
Correct. Yes, this November.
In November. Okay.
Correct, yep.
Do you know the date of that meeting?
It is November 23rd, the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Okay. And so this evening, we're just discussing any comments we might have with regards to our recommendation, but ultimately the ZBA will be making the decision related to that.
Correct. Yes, they'll be making a decision on the variances requested, and then ultimately within our local bylaw, they'll have to apply for site plan review of the planning board.
So we'll be seeing more on it to come.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. I don't know. I'm going to open it up to members of the board to see if they have any comments or questions regarding where we are at right now prior to the ZBA meeting coming up and this recommendation. So Member McCamey, do you have any comments or questions at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. So Connor, just to be clear, it will come back before the planning board for a site plan review.
Correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. And does that mean that whatever modifications or variances or whatever are negotiated with the zoning board of appeals that the planning board has to follow? For example, three stories versus 4 stories.
So they're seeking a variance for 4 stories. So they'll only be given the ability to go 4 stories.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
Member Downey, do you have any comments or questions?
I just want to be clear, we're just commenting on this for this meeting and then it's going to the ZBA? Is that?
We're making a planning board recommendation, so you can either make your own recommendation or endorse the staff recommendation, as we've done
Okay.
previous with the other petitions.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions or comments. Thank you.
All right. Member Baker, any comments or questions?
When was this project originally petitioned? This couple of years ago? I'm not sure if I was on the board when this came up.
It was last year. I don't have the exact filing date, but they did file in fall 2019, so almost a year ago.
Oh, it was. Okay, so I must have
Yeah.
took on to this one. Yeah, there's no real comments. I'm just curious of the variance for the extra story versus 3. Yeah, so no comments.
Okay.
Member Grove, do you have any comments or questions?
Just a comment, Madam Chairman. I'm going to abstain on this. I wanted to see the land court decision, but haven't been able to get it, and I've been having problems with my computer. So
Member
I'd just like to
Grove,
know more before I weigh in.
Member Grove, I just want to comment, sorry to rudely interrupt, but there is really no decision from the land court. They did just issue a remand order.
They didn't write anything down, Connor?
Merely just a remand order. That was it, sir. It was a 2 to 3 page document.
No, I'd still like to see it, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have any further question or comment. It sounds like it'll be before the ZBA, and then if that moves forward before us for site plan review. So can I get a motion on the ZBA, this single ZBA recommendation for the November meeting?
I will move a motion to agree with the staff recommendation to the ZBA.
We have a motion to move forward with staff recommendation for 99 and 107 Hancock Street. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Roll call vote. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove, you're abstaining from this
Yes, ma'am, I'm standing.
as noted, and I'm in favor of moving forward with staff recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connor. So it's 6:15, so we have our first public hearing scheduled for 75 Cardinal Court, file number 20-04, which is a special permit. We have Mark and Sue Ellen McKinnon as the applicants. I think they're on the call. We do have to read into record the public notice. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Connor, can you read it in? I don't have it in front of me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Notice is given by the planning board under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9 and 11, and the Braintree zoning ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 5, 6, 7, 11, and 12, that a remote virtual public hearing in accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order shall be conducted on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 6:15. The public hearing will not be conducted in an open, publicly accessible place. Instead, public access to the hearing and deliberations will be achieved by adequate alternative means that allow the public to follow the proceeding in a third-party communication technology that is readily accessible to the public via the internet and telephone. The planning board will consider a special permit application filed by Mark and Sue Ellen McKinnon, property owners of 75 Cardinal Court. The applicants seek to demolish the existing 222 square foot deck and construct a 399 square foot deck at the rear of the existing non-conforming residential dwelling, currently deficient of the required 30-foot rear yard setback and within the 30-foot open space conservancy buffer. The property is zoned Residence B, located in the Watershed Protection Overlay District, and is adjacent to Open Space Conservancy District, subject to a required 30-foot buffer zone in which a portion of the above activities are proposed. Said parcel is identified on Assessors Plan 1097, Plot 150, with a land area of 27,617 square feet. To attend a planning board meeting via Zoom, it provides the link, a dial-in number, a webinar ID, and a link to international numbers. To review the application materials, you can find them on the planning board page of the town's website, braintree.ma.gov, or at the Department of Planning and Community Development during normal business hours.
Great, thank you, Connor. All right, as some of the members might remember from last meeting, this was before us as a zoning board of appeal recommendation. The applicant was before the ZBA last month and did receive approval from them. So now it is before us because of its because of the location within the 30-foot setback to conservation that they need to get a special permit from us. So as I understand it, and if the applicant, wishes to chime in, it just looks like there's an existing deck that's being removed and a new deck is being placed at the rear of the home, and the home is just uniquely situated in the lot in that it's right close to the lot line. So you don't have enough space to do that work without this the variance and the special permit. Oh, I can't hear McKinnon's. I can't hear, your audio isn't coming through for me. I still can't hear.
It's still not coming through, Mark.
That's all right. Maybe, Connor, I assume you've been working with the applicants on this application. So maybe what we can do is just see if anyone from the public has any comments or questions, and we can try to.
Can they call in? Is there a number they can call on a phone?
Yes. Yep.
Can
So-
they do that? Can they hear us?
Mark and Sue, if you go to the email you received from the mayor's office, below the link, there should be a call-in number. If you call in using that number, you should be able to speak during the meeting.
I don't know. Can they hear you?
I believe they can hear me. Yeah,
Okay.
I would hope so.
So Connor, whereabouts is the actual 30-foot buffer for conservation? Is it on the plan?
Yep. So if you look at the plot plan that was provided,
Yep.
there's a solid line that
I
goes
see
through.
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the 30-yard setback and 30-foot buffer.
okay. So is it 30 feet from the actual property line, or is it?
So the zone line and property line are the same.
Oh, they are. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay. makes sense.
Any luck here? Can you, Connor, is there anything to?
Mark, I can't hear you. If you're calling in right now, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
You have to allow him for the next, when he's calling in? Yeah, I think you have to allow him.
I have to allow him.
Yep.
I don't see.
I don't have that.
Give me 1 second.
I'm in a meeting.
802. 1 sec, Mark, I found you. I'm going to allow you. 1 sec. Right here. His phone number.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh,
we
he's in
can.
the attendees. Okay, got it.
All right, let me mute this here.
Mark, if you mind turning off your computer audio, it's just going to give you feedback between.
Yeah, I just did. Oh, that off. Oh, hold on, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that better?
It's awesome. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry. It said I was unmuted on the screen. I'm sorry. I don't know what was going on with that. The microphone worked for the ZBA meeting, so I don't know why it wasn't working this time. But any event, so yeah, just real quickly, yeah, when this house was built back in '73, there's a ton of ledge on the property. So the house itself was kind of put at a rather strange angle and back on the sort of the back recesses of the property, because if you look at the plan, you can see there's a circular driveway. In the middle of that and on either side of that is all rock outcroppings, which is why the driveway was built the way it was and the house positioned in the lot the way it is. Yeah, so basically, without approvals and whatever, we really can't do anything to the house at this point, because we're already non-conforming.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. If anybody has any comments or questions or wants to ask anything or speak about this project, if you could just raise your hand or let us know via the sidebar functionality on the Zoom meeting. Connor, I think will help me monitor that. If I don't see anyone with their hand raised now, so we'll just watch that. Right now, I'll just kind of go through board members to see if any board members have any comments or questions. Member McCamey, any comments or questions regarding this application?
So if I recall correctly, Connor,
Mhm.
it's an old deck that needs to be replaced.
Correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. And the only other thing I just mentioned is, I noticed it was built on sonotubes, and you can't, if they wanted to, for example, replace the deck with an addition, that would be a totally different permit.
Correct, sir. So they have a couple different safeguards. In their zoning board of appeals decision, they do have a condition that if it was to be converted into some type of habitual situation, they would have to come back to the zoning board. In addition to that, they'll have to come back to the planning board as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you very much. Member Downey,
I have no questions or comments, thanks.
all right. Member Baker,
Just quick question for clarification. So I see that there's an existing deck and there's a bunch of stairs. Is it like a two-tiered deck or is it all the same level?
It's all on the
It looks
same
like
level.
there's two sets of stairs.
It's all on the same level.
Okay, so that there's existing staircase that's being removed and then a smaller
Correct.
staircase built to like the left-hand side?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, no more questions.
Member Grove, do you have any comments,
Yes,
questions?
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
I assume that the kitchen is on that side of the house, so you have access from the kitchen?
The kitchen is on that side of the house, yes. On the back side of the house, yes.
Right, so I mean, there's access there to the deck, right?
Not directly from the kitchen, no.
No.
No?
No. So from the, and today there is if you see in the plan, there's a little bump out off the back of the house that the deck is attached to now. That's a 3-season room. That's actually where we're sitting right now. And that's the only access to the deck from the interior of the home. And that's going to remain the same. So we had actually looked at alternative of putting the deck on the other side of the 3-season room, but then it was going to impinge on our neighbor's privacy and whatnot. So we opted to try to go this route instead.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Member Grove, is that it?
Yep.
Thank you. I don't have any other comments or questions. So I still am not seeing anything. Connor, are you seeing anything? Any questions or?
No, I don't
Right.
see anyone.
All right. So I think at this point we can move to close the public hearing. If there's a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes,
and myself, yes. We also need a motion to enter into the record correspondence through the last date on correspondence, Connor.
November 6th, 2020.
All right. So a motion for that.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
yes,
All right, so now we can make a motion on this application if somebody can do that.
Madam Chair, the motion in front of the board, special permit 135-702, planning board file 2004, for special permit be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we just include conditions as well? We have draft findings and
Yes.
conditions prepared.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, with conditions as presented?
We have conditions, we have our standard boilerplate, conditions 1 through 15, and then we have conditions up to number 25. So 25 conditions in total, as well as, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as well as 8 findings.
The applicant has had a chance to review the conditions and is all set.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we have.
All right, so if we can just make note, Member Downey, I think, had revised his motion to include the conditions.
Yes.
So we just need a second on approval of this application with conditions.
Second.
All right, second. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
yes.
All right, I also am yes, so that application is approved. And thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye, Con.
All right. Running on time so far. It is 6:32. We have two continued public hearings that begin at 6:30. I actually will be stepping off for both 35 Johnson Lane and 45 Johnson Lane. So Vice Chair Baker, you're up.
All right.
I'll pop back on after.
Yeah, so you guys have to lead me through here, Melissa, Connor, Christine.
Yeah, so if I can, Mr. Vice Chair, so Christine's not with us this evening.
Okay,
Just thinking of her, she lost her mother-in-law last week.
It doesn't matter.
And she's not able to be with us this evening. So for 35 Johnson Lane, Christine has prepared the draft conditions and those have been circulated. Connor and I spoke with her yesterday. There was one outstanding item related to landscaping, which was addressed yesterday by their engineer, Michael Joyce. And it's ready to be acted on if there's no other questions from the board members. Mike, I don't know if you want to just give them a quick update on some of the things that have transpired. I apologize, I don't have my normal laundry list of updates. But my understanding is everything has been rectified to Christine's satisfaction, hence the draft conditions.
Yeah, so basically the project is pretty similar to what was proposed last hearing. The kind of substantial changes we have made is we extended the landscape island that was abutting Roxanne Park Road by approximately 40 feet, just to kind of close up that curb cut a little bit more. And we also agreed, and the plans will be updated as such, to extend the landscape island that abuts Johnson Lane by approximately 25 feet, just to provide some additional landscaping and try to assist in the traffic movements out on the site. Outside of that, there were a few housekeeping things we revised, some information we added to the plan that Christine, Ms. Stickney was looking for. But outside of that, it's all pretty much the same project. Yeah, that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
is there any questions from the public or comments?
Doesn't look like anyone has their hand raised at this time. Member Baker, we have 10 people in attendance. I don't see any hands up, but we'll keep an eye on that as you listen or see comments from the board members. We'll monitor that as well.
Okay, any comments from the board? Member McCamey?
I would just say that as usual, we appreciate any additional landscaping, particularly for that area. So that is much appreciated. And my only other question would be, when is this project going to commence?
We're hoping to break ground this fall and put the steel up as soon as possible. I'd refer to the Reeves for a more exact timeline, but that was the thought.
Talking to my general, I guess a lot of it is weather predicated. He said upon approval, we'll try to get some kind of longer range view of the weather and then make our decisions from there. So worst case scenario would be in the spring.
Got it. Okay, because I know that part of your strategy here was to kind of mitigate some of the traffic through your lot there. So that probably wouldn't happen until you start construction.
Yeah, the construction will definitely mitigate it, but the extension, the extension of the addition out into the parking lot will also mitigate a lot of the cut through traffic as well.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Member Downey, any questions or comments?
I have no questions. I just want to echo Member McCamey's statement about appreciating the landscaping. I think anything that can add value like that is much appreciated. We appreciate you working with the board and the staff. It was explained last month pretty adequately what your plan was and where you were going with this. So we'd like to see this come to fruition. Thank you.
Okay, and Member Grove?
No, sir.
Okay, so what I'd like to issue this for motion to approve this petition with the draft conditions stated by Melissa.
Member Baker, if we can just back up just a little bit and we need a motion to close the hearing and then we can move towards a vote either in favor or in opposition.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I say one thing about the conditions? Is that possible?
Yep.
I was hoping there was one condition regarding the stormwater be constructed first, the stormwater system. I was hoping we could just modify that slightly so that we could install the stormwater simultaneous with the foundation construction. And then maybe it's condition number 24, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and then maybe like prior to vertical construction, stormwater to be complete, just so that we can install it at the same time in case there is an opportunity to get the foundation in the fall, we could do all the excavation at the same time.
So I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think that was Christine's intention because where she says erection of the proposed addition typically means above the foundation, but if you want us to clarify that.
If that's what the board understands it as, that's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure that that we'd be okay come construction time.
So the intention is the drainage and the foundation is done all as part of the site work?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a note for that. I'm making some notes now for Christine, so I'll make sure that that condition is revised to be just a little bit clearer. Thank you.
Okay, so what do you want me to do next, Melissa?
If there's no other comments from the board or the public, which I don't see any hands up, we can, by roll call vote, close the hearing and then move towards a vote.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
I'll take a roll call vote. Member McCamey,
yes.
Member Grove,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, board.
Well, they got to vote. Hold on.
Premature
more,
thank yous, I take it back.
And now, does someone want to make a motion to approve the special permit and site plan review?
Yep. Special permit and site plan review, planning board file number 2006, 35 Johnson Lane, subject to the conditions discussed at this meeting, be approved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor? Roll call. Member McCamey,
yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Now are the thank yous appropriate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank yous are always appropriate for us.
Okay, so next matter on the agenda is, we're doing 45 Johnson Lane.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, very briefly, I see we've got quite a few people here from the applicant team. Christine has updated Connor and I. She's still attempting to work with the applicant to follow along with everybody else on Johnson Lane and Roxham. The board's seen, well, we're probably at a 7 projects now, and everybody's doing drainage upgrades at different levels, depending on the project and what's being done, just as previously described by the Reeves and their site and several other sites. Johnson Lane, we had the Mr. McPeck, we had Academy Bus, we've had multiple projects in that area. So we did get a memo from their engineer, stating that, they don't want to do drainage, and they provided a watershed map. And, interestingly enough, the watershed map shows that the catch basins in the street out in front of their property are completely filled with silt. That's something that unfortunately doesn't reflect very well when submitted to the community. Roxham is a private way and should be privately maintained. So Christine has suggested that they continue this evening and that they try to put their best foot forward. Like I said, in line with these other projects and these other applicants that are making incremental improvements based on the project. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is anyone from their party here tonight that wants to speak on that behalf, or?
Yes, please. Hi, everybody. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you. I'm Ken Goldstein from the law firm Goldstein and Herndon, and I have with me the applicant Parker Global Industries, represented by their principals, Richard Livingston and Ellen Livingston. Why don't you raise your hands, Richard and Ellen? Jonathan Austin is the project architect, and he's my audiovisual guy. So if you could enable his screen share, that would be helpful. Thank you. And also with me is Terry Talasco from Bristol Engineering,
Jonathan
our
Austin.
project engineer. Just to refresh everyone's recollection from our earlier meeting, the applicant is the proposed buyer of 45 Johnson Lane. They are not currently the owners. They're members of Johnstone Supply Cooperative, which is a national seller of HVAC equipment to contractors. They propose a small 2,500 square foot showroom in a building which is mostly a warehouse. And that's what triggers the special permit under section 135, section 609E and F of the bylaw. Because that use, the showroom use is not specifically mentioned. They are making no external changes to this building whatsoever. And that's what differentiates this from the other projects that were mentioned a moment ago. So I want to stress that there are no proposed exterior modifications to this existing structure. They simply want to use the existing building as is, in the same manner as two of their competitors are already using similar buildings within the district, including showrooms. So at our last meeting, clarification was requested regarding the lot size. I produced a letter, which is now part of your record, and can report that the survey dimension of the subject lot is 59,059 square feet. And of that, 6,964 square feet is the paper right-of-way of Johnson Lane. But only 4,000 square feet of that right-of-way is actually paved and used as for passage of cars. So the area of 45 Johnson Lane, excluding the area actually used for passage, comes to 46,059 square feet. There was also a question raised about the origin of the 15-foot drain which runs on the Johnson Lane side of the property. Unfortunately, there is no specific easement or taking addressing that lane. It's just there, and we know it's there because our engineer did a site visit and established that it's there. And I'll note for you that the recent project you approved at 65 Johnson Lane uses that drain without any question about its origin. We've established that we have the right to tie into it as well. So most of the board's concern had to do with drainage on the site, and I'm pleased to report that our engineers have gone back to the drawing board and come up with a cost-effective solution for drainage. The solution will reduce pooling of stormwater on the site very dramatically. It involves connecting the roof drains to the drains that exist in Johnson Lane and Roscoe Park Lane. Bristol Engineering has written you a letter explaining the proposal and can tell you why further efforts at this site would be minimally impactful and frankly not cost effective given the scope of our project. So I'll turn this over to Terry Tedosco, who can walk you through our revised site plan. Terry, you there?
Yep. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, members of the board. So what we had looked at was to try to improve the drainage at the site. Because right now, nearly the entire site and a large portion of Roxham Road and Johnson Lane end up in the catch basin that is on the adjacent property at 35 Johnson Lane. So when we looked at this, just given the grades and the loading dock and thresholds and sort of trying to come up with a solution that captures the majority of site runoff without the need for very disruptive site work. And given the nature of the special permit, there's no addition or increase in impervious area. So what we think would be very effective is to capture the almost the entire roof, 22,000 square feet, about half the site, and route that into the drain systems in Roxham Park and in Johnson Lane. Instead of currently now it goes to the catch basin off-site, and that catch basin, as you probably know, is overwhelmed with the smaller storm events due to the slope of the pipe. It's very flat and it's undersized. So by taking out the roof from this area, we think that there could be substantial increase in the benefits to resolving some of the flooding issues that are on the site now.
So I'm going to add that we're not ignoring water infiltration either, that the proposal that we've come up with includes dramatic, and significant landscape improvements and improvements to the functionality of the existing catch basins. So the major change is this roof change. I hope that you're going to agree that we've come up with a proposal that is proportional to our application. I understand that you could spend a lot of money and energy making this a perfect drainage solution, but this is not cost effective for the deal that we're engaged in. That's all I got to say, folks.
Okay. Is any members from the public have anything to say? You see anyone, Melissa or Connor? Melissa?
I'm here, sorry. I was waiting for the share screen
No, it's okay.
to go down. I don't see any members from the public, Mr. Chairman. No hands up at this time.
And members of the board, any questions or comments? Mayor McCamey?
Thank you. I'm going to recommend that we push this over. I appreciate the work that the applicant has done. However, as the Assistant Director Santucci Razi said, we've had a number of projects in this area. I think I've been involved with every single one. And, we've had substantial improvements in addition to the improvements that we look for in every special permit. I don't think this is an exception. And I would just simply encourage you to work with the staff. We're not the experts on drainage, but in my humble opinion, I think that you need to satisfy the staff, which represents the town of Braintree. And you need to address all their issues. I understand the cost issues, but we have our standards and we look for quality. I don't think we're asking for anything excessive. I don't know what the outcome would be, but I think simply, as I said, you need to work with the staff. They represent not only the board, but the town. And, when I look at all the other projects we've done in this area, there's been substantial improvements. So I will leave it at that. And my recommendation will be that we put it over and let the applicant try to work with the staff.
Thank you, Mr. McCamey. Any questions, Member Downey?
Melissa, you said Christine was working on this, is that correct?
Yes, she is, Member Downey, and I was
Okay.
just circling back. I see here this revised memo was dated November 5th, so it was submitted after the deadline of submission. You know, I can't answer to if a full review was done, but like I had said in the beginning, Christine advised us that this is not ready and for it to be
Yeah.
continued. So
Okay.
I'm sure she'll be following up with Attorney Goldstein to further discuss what's in this November 5th memo here.
Okay. I just, yeah, to Memo McCamey's statement, hearing that, makes me even more inclined to continue this, and encourage you to work with the staff who, know this much better a lot of times than the actual board does, because they're engaged in it full time and they're seeing this day to day, where we see it once a month. So, just if you could, work with them as closely as possible. And we can
Respectfully, if I may, I mean, we haven't heard anything specific about what the town wants. All we've heard is that what we've proposed is not enough. Is it possible that the planning board might give us a little bit of direction on this? I think my client would be happy to continue this to the next meeting if it means we've got a chance of satisfying. But to be honest with you, we don't know what the goal is, how high the bar is that we're aiming for. Okay, maybe
Attorney Goldstein, you're just going to have to meet with the staff and get it resolved. This is what we do for every special permit. Okay, there's no exceptions. There's no deviations. We're just asking for quality. We're reasonable people, but we want to make sure that it gets done correctly.
I'm not sure.
And I don't know what that means, sir, but because you're going to have to address that with the director.
Yeah, I'm
right?
not sure
Clearly she has some concerns.
Yeah, I'm not sure why this isn't quality, and I'm also a little bit, questioning whether this should be compared to other projects that involve expansions of sites and major changes to sites where this is really none of
special permits have rules and regulations.
Yeah.
You subjected yourself to this. You described the showroom as 2,600 square feet, small. Of course it's small relative to the building, but that's the size of a house, as I mentioned last time.
Yeah.
So, this area has its challenges. We understand that. But, you have to, what we're simply saying to you is, on every project, on every special permit, we try to work with the applicants. That's what we're asking you to do. I'm not making a comment in terms of quality, good or bad. I'm just saying that's what we want. We want a high quality product, and certainly your client does as well. I mean, they're making a major investment in this. But the town has its responsibility, and the director and the assistant director, they represent the town and they represent the board. So in every single case, we have the applicants work with the staff.
Right.
Thank you.
Respectfully, we have, we'll continue to, but
Okay.
I kind of don't know exactly what we're shooting for here.
Well, you can ask the director. She's unfortunately not here tonight. So,
Understood.
there's open issues in her mind, and I just don't see how we can resolve it until the staff is satisfied. The staff is very critical. They're highly professional and very experienced, and they understand both sides. And I don't want to lecture on about it, but if you've been involved with other special permits, we're not giving anybody breaks or this or that. We're just simply we're applying the laws and the rules. So we just ask you to meet with them and try to resolve these issues so we can come up with some conditions. If we can't, then we can't move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Chairman Baker, I would just suggest, Mr. Goldstein, again, I don't want to speak for Christine, my boss, but I would suggest, sitting down and having a meeting. I did mention the date of your memo, which was past the submission deadline. So whether or not it was fully vetted, I can't answer that question. So I suggest that you follow up with her and maybe have a call with your engineer so that it's clear what the proposed improvements are and if there's any room for minor adjustments to those to hopefully satisfy the board.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Member McCamey and Member Downey. Member Grove. Any questions or
No
comments?
comments. No.
Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing on this?
No, we're not gonna
No,
close
we're
it.
not.
Not gonna
Let's
close?
close it.
Continue this to which date, Melissa?
So, we're looking at next month, which is our December 8th meeting. I wanted to ask the board, we have Sitco already continued for that evening, the definitive subdivision. We are gonna start at 6 o'clock. I don't know if the board wanted to do times, like they did for this meeting, but, if we're starting at 6, I would suggest continuing this to, maybe 6:15, 6:20, something like that. Give us some time in the beginning to do a few, administrative items.
Okay. So can I get a motion to continue this application to December 8th, 6:15/6:20?
So moved.
Can I hear a second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Member McCamey?
Yes.
Member Grove?
Yes.
Member Downey?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Erin back on for this next one, or you want me to go to the next
Yes,
one?
she's coming back on,
Okay.
Member Baker. I just wanted to, if people are panelists and their case has already been completed, if they wouldn't mind, if you want to stay and attend the meeting, that's fine. But if you could leave and come on as an attendee, it's just a little bit easier to balance the screen. We got about, 30 tiles going now. So like I said, if your case has already been heard, if you still want to hang out, come on as an attendee. And if you're waiting, we thank you for staying muted with your video off. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So our next item on the agenda that's set for a time is a continued public hearing at 7:15 for 360 to 400 Wood Road. Since it's only 7 o'clock, we're gonna just jump down and do a little bit more new business until 7:15. So with that, let's do the minor modification and as-built approval for 510 Union Street.
Yes, if I may, Madam Chair. Connor was working on this project and he's busy working on some other things, so I jumped back in and finished it up. I met Mr. Morelkins, who was here with us this evening. He's muted and he's here. You can join us at any time. Mr. Mulcairns, there he is.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I met Mr. Mulcairns out on the site last week, and he did make some modifications. I don't know if people have seen. It is on Union Street, and is noted in the staff report. He did do some clearing in the backyard, but I have to say, the property actually looks much better. He did some minor clearing. He planted some additional screening and landscaping, and he did some minor grading on the side of the property with a very low retaining wall. And it's actually created a very nice drainage swale that helps direct the water away from his garage and down the driveway and away from his neighbors. So it's a minor modification to allow the changes to the backyard and the landscaping. And I've included those revised conditions and revised finding. And then we also have the as-built plan, which is snapshotted right into the staff report just to make it a little bit easier. So the staff is recommending the modification for the landscaping be approved, and that we issue as-built approval, and the surviving conditions are noted in the staff report.
Thank you, Melissa. All right. Member McCamey, do you have any questions or comments?
Melissa, was this just about landscaping?
This was a two-family conversion.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, and the lot, the lot is like, God, it's just so massive.
Yeah.
It's very big and it's very deep. So what Mr. Morokins did behind the house, and there's a nice shed and a little patio area. He's created a yard for himself, which is now usable. It's all loomed and nice grass coming in. And like I said, he's planted 10 arborvitaes and also saw 15 bushes around the structure. So little by little, he's fixing it up, putting work into it. And frankly, you know, I was out there last week. The yard it's very nice now and actually usable.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Downey, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Member Baker?
No questions.
Member Grove?
No, ma'am.
I don't either. So staff is in favor of moving forward with the minor modification and as-built approval with the remaining conditions, correct, Melissa?
Yep, we have all the plans. I just need to follow up and get an electronic copy from Mr. Mo Kerins, which I can, if the board acts favorably, I will follow up with that and do the as-built certificate to have you guys come and sign it.
All right, sounds good. All right, so Chair will entertain a motion on this minor modification and as-built approval.
Madam Chair, the as-built for 510 Union Street, planning board file 18-21 be approved.
Is there a
Can we
second?
include the minor
Sorry.
mod in that as well, please?
And the minor modifications and the conditions as discussed at this meeting.
Awesome.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. So Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes.
and I myself am also yes. All right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. The next on our new business agenda, we still have a couple minutes before 7:15, is a minor modification for landscaping at 205 Elm Street, which is the Riverwalk Development LLC. If the members will recall, the applicant was here, I believe, last month talking about landscape changes and planting schedules, and we had requested them to work with staff to get an updated landscape plan and just kind of try to button it all up. So I think that's what we're going to be hearing an update on that tonight. So if we could maybe get an update from staff and maybe staff first, and then the applicant can also chime in after that.
I'd love to, Madam Chair. Very briefly, George Clements of Riverwalk has been working with Garrett Tunison. They provided the updated landscaping plan, which was circulated to the board today. I pulled out my old staff report from January, and then I looked at their request for modifications in June. And I've prepared this updated report, which I've shared with George and also Ms. Caffney, who is one of the trustees. And what was discussed in March was that obviously the plantings are deficient. The report indicates that as well, as done by Mr. Tunison. He's inventoried the site. And the board had talked about gauging somewhere between 50 and 60 of the plantings that were originally approved. So I took the plan from Garrett. There were 26 trees originally approved, and 22 trees originally approved, and they installed 10. And in George's memo, he indicated that they were going to plant 6 or 7 more along the common boundary for screening with 245 Elm Street. So the 10 that are there plus the 6 or 7 gets us to about 16 or 17 where 22 was approved. Staff has no objections to that. Then we get down to the bushes and shrubs and perennials, and annuals, and all those other things. And basically there's 540 shrubs. Out of those 541, 48 of them are deceased, according to Mr. Tunison. And the bearberry ground cover, which frankly in the original plans was substantial, almost excessive. None of that has been planted. So what I did is I went back and said, okay, what was approved, what's in, and what's it going to take to get to 50 to 60%. So if the board wants 55% of the plantings done, they have to add 160 more. If they want 50%, they're looking at 101 more plantings. And then the question of what do we do about this ground cover? And does the board want to see any of that installed? Or can those areas simply be mulched and create some planting beds using, mulch around the plantings instead of all of the ground cover? Again, it seems excessive, and whether or not Mr. Tunison feels that as well, he can respond to that. There was some, back in March, there was outstanding issues about the landings coming out of the doors and the landscaping around those. That has all been taken care of. Some fencing was added, and planning staff has no problem with any of the fencing. There's a little bit of lasering and maybe heating up of some of the pavement that needs to be done out there. There's a puddle, near the catch basin. I've talked to George about this a couple times. I think that should be done, before the ground freezes this year. We still need the operations and maintenance plan for the drainage system. And that's pretty much it. So from what we need from the board is, what level of planting do we want to be at? And what are we going to do about this ground cover? And then I have one follow-up question for the applicant. They talked about they want to move all these plantings now that were originally planted. And I guess my first question is why? And my second question is where to? So those are really the issues condensed as much as I could condense them. And I'm here for any questions or follow-up comments as needed.
Just a point of clarification, the proximity to the Manadequat River and Riverfront, does this, anything we do this evening, does that affect anything Conservation Commission related? And is that kind of working the two things together?
Member, Chairwoman Joyce, I've stayed out of the riverfront. I know where my role is, and it's not down there. So I have completely separated the riverfront restoration from the planning board purview and from my review. And Kelly is working on that with George and Garrett separately.
Okay, I think that's helpful to understand because decisions we make about plantings tonight isn't necessarily impacting riverfront areas.
Correct.
So that's pretty much the back half of the parcels in the riverfront, right?
Yeah.
So we're just kind of talking about the front portion of the site. And then just kind of a refresher to go back in time, the planting plan that was originally submitted for the project and approved with the project was one that was created by the applicant originally. Yes?
Yes.
So we never really dictated how many plants we wanted. We were just going with what the original plan showed.
Yeah, this plan was presented as part of the site plan process and included in the record by the board.
Okay, I think it just as a point of clarification that, we don't really set out to say how many trees or how many plants, but when you give us a plan, we're trying to compare what you built versus what you told us you were going to build. So now we're at a position where we're just trying to make sense of that and see what works. So it sounds like You have been able to have some good discussions, and we did get the evaluation of the existing plants, and that's really good, and the new plan for planting. I'm going to just kind of open it up to the board for their thoughts on some of the items that you discussed, especially the number of trees and kind of how we can work forward, move forward with this. So Member McCamey, I'm going to start with you. Do you have what are your thoughts on this?
I think both sides have worked really hard, and I just think we should come down in the middle. I think Melissa mentioned a 50%. I'd be in favor of something like that. You know, let's people living there seemed okay. You know, we're almost done with this thing. Let's just push it over the finish line.
All right, thank you, Member McCamey. Member Downey.
Yeah, I guess, is that the position of the homeowners association, that they're okay with 50%, or is that something we need to talk about, or? I don't know if
George is here, Member Downey. Garrett's here as well, and Stephanie is here. I don't know if they want to add to this.
Yeah.
I was just kind of picking up where we had left off in March.
If I may, it's George Clements, developer, Riverwalk. So with me this evening, I have Stephanie Caffrey, who is the trustee for Riverwalk. I think, you know, for the last year or better part of a year, we've been working closely, Stephanie and I, to try and figure out the best plan. I mean, clearly we had a plan that we went in, we implemented this plan. We were hopeful that the land would support the massive planting program that we submitted originally with this approval. But I think what we've discovered through this, I mean, the land's just not supporting it. And of the 48, and I think, you know, it's kind of telling, if you look at the plan, Melissa brought up the point that 48 of these plants died. I think it's telling to us that, you know, the original plan, it was nice on paper, but it just didn't work in the field. And it didn't work because a lot of these plants, when you put them on drive aisles, they're going to get impacted by salt. They're going to be impacted by snow. So I definitely, you know, I'm of the opinion, I would suggest reducing the number of plants, not adding plants. I think what that does is that creates a real hardship. I think, you know, I think what happens now that we've planted it and everybody drives by there, everybody sees it. I don't think it's offensive by any measure. I think it's quite well landscaped. And, you know, I think landscaping is not just a function of plants. I think it's also a function of the nice landscaping walls and the things that we added that were above and beyond plants. So I think the compromise is there. But I think adding new plants, and I have no problem doing it, but I look at it as, you know, I understand that there's a percentage that we want to reach, but what I'm seeing, and I think, you know, when you look at it as a practical matter, we had a plan, we've implemented the plan, and what we've planted thus far really isn't surviving. And the memo that was sent, and I don't know if you all had a chance to read that, is pretty telling. And Garrett is here with me, and you know, it's you know, we've had the benefit of 2 growing seasons, and we are starting to notice that there's really not spacing to add more planting. I'm open to doing it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I think that's been the struggle for the last, you know, 2 growing seasons, that we've run out of room on this in terms of just locations to plant. I'm certainly open to doing it, but I just don't know where they would be. But I think in that regard, again, I'm the developer, but I think it's better for the homeowner to address this because they're the ones that actually are going to have to care for and maintain this site long term. So Stephanie, I think you may want to weigh in on this, if you would.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Caffrey. I am a resident here at Riverwalk, and I'm also one of the trustees. So we have been working with George significantly in the landscaping, and I actually walked around with Garrett, I think it was yesterday as well, going through the property. I will say that, you know, there are a substantial amount of plants that are out there now. I think that the original plan, and I saw it on paper before I bought my home, it was beautiful, but there was no building that was up. So now we have all of these residences that have been put up. There are substantial plantings that were put down, and now we're trying to upkeep them. So there are plants that did, you know, die as a result of whether it was the environment, the drought that we had, the fact that we don't have an actual watering system in place at this time. So I understand the town's perspective insofar as bringing it to 50 or 60% of the original plan. But I will say that as a resident coming in and out every day and walking around this property every day, I don't know where they would go. Some of the plants that were placed just logistically didn't work. Some of the plants that were taken up that may be missing, as Garrett pointed out, near the mailboxes, had to do with snow plows coming in. So when we have significant amounts of snow, the plow is coming down, and I don't know how familiar the board is with the property, but it's a pretty narrow driveway that goes down and kind of goes around the back. We need a plow to come through, and there needs to be a place for snow to go. And so I think that there was 3 or 4 plants that were, albeit mistakenly, lifted up by a snowplow. And that's one of the things that we run into. Again, I mentioned the fact that we don't have a well at this time. We've also had to vet several different landscaping companies for upkeep. We are a small association. We only have 12 units on the property. So, HOA fees, if there are going to be substantially more plants put in, they are going to increase, obviously, with maintenance, upkeep, and et cetera. So that would be some of the concerns of the homeowners and myself in particular. Again, just I don't know where additional plants would go.
Thank you, Stephanie. And one other thing that I'd like to address is, staff did a memo back, I guess it was maybe back in May. They counted 400 plants. We've counted, I think we've established in excess of 500 plants. But one thing that I think we really need to look at as well is recently a lot of plants were dug out as part of an upgrade to the gas system over there. And I'm just as unclear as to who takes the enforcement action with the gas company to ensure that these plants are going to be replaced and the lawns are going to be restored. I mean, that I think our original back in June, when I submitted my memo back to Melissa asking for permission to add these arborvitaes, we did a total, and it appears as, maybe as much as 20 plants were removed during this gas installation. So I just raised that because I think, we hit at our last meeting, we had discussed the number of plants, and, I think we were closer to that number. But at any rate, I'm going to leave it with the board, and I'll take your recommendations and follow whatever the board feels is appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clements and Ms. Caffrey. That was helpful, and it's good to hear as people who are living and having to have the site function for them on a daily basis. Your input on what is out there is very helpful. So thank you for that. So it sounds like we're close, and maybe we can make a decision tonight on what we want to do. Did everyone, Member Baker, did you have a chance to, who were we last on? Member Downey or Member Baker?
I think Downey.
Downey.
Okay.
Yep.
Member Downey, did you have anything else?
No, I just wanted to hear from the homeowners association, so I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you. Member Baker?
Yeah, the only kind of comment I have is just as kind of Member McCamey might get at as well, is that as a board for the Braintree Planning Board, our kind of goal and objective is to kind of beautify Braintree, make sure that everyone's kind of abiding by the same conditions and the same kind of solutions to whatever they're getting done on their site. And it gets us as a board, I understand that there's, certain extents where there's plantings that are there and we're not even at 50%, and the homeowner association says they don't want to plant anymore. I understand that, but it's kind of a gray area for us as a board, because if we do it for you, then every person can come in, submit a landscape plan and say, I'm putting in 1,000 plants, and then put in 100 and say, oh, well, we're okay with 100. And it's kind of tough as us as a board to figure out where's the line drawn in the sand. So I'm kind of having a tough time of figuring out what is enough and what is not enough. So I guess I'm trying to figure out I guess the general, the board's feeling of, is it 50%? Is it 45%? Is it 60? Where is it? I think that there's definitely areas you could definitely plant. But it's just a matter of, I guess, what the comfortability of the board and obviously the homeowner association, as well as Stephanie and George. I totally understand kind of where you guys are at. I'm just trying to figure out myself of, kind of where does it fall here? So.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. It is hard to know when you talk about it as a percentage. I mean, I think the good thing is that, Melissa's been out there a lot and has been out counting and has been having ongoing discussions and is familiar with similar projects and what plantings have been done. And, I do have confidence that her recommendation is, probably a good recommendation and one that will kind of meet in the middle for everyone, both the town and the homeowners and stuff. So I think it is hard though to figure that out. So I definitely appreciate that comment. Melissa, do you have any?
Yeah, if I may, just to kind of shed a little more light here and listening to George and to the trustees. So the original design, the way for me to describe it was almost like a blanket. It was a lot of ground cover and a lot of plantings that essentially created a blanket of greenery. And what we sort of ended up with was plantings here and there, and then lawn around that. So when we talk about the 50%, that's 50% of the actual bushes and perennials and annuals, and then not even including the ground cover. So the ground cover was another 1,000 plants. So we had about 1,000 plants, and then we had about 1,000 ground cover. So when I say 50%, 55%, I mean just the plantings, and then the board and maybe Garrett to weigh in on this ground cover. And I'm also wondering, does the ground cover help the plantings? Do they support them? Do they create sort of a more wholesome bed area? I'm not a landscape expert. I know enough to be dangerous, but what I do know and what I can tell you is that what was proposed and what was planted, it's like a different style in a different scheme in itself. So it wasn't necessarily, let's just disperse a few of these plants here. The thought in the theme behind the plan is completely different. And I would look to Garrett and his expertise to, is the ground cover going to help the situation? Because the plantings, I mean, I don't even think they mulched anything. So those are some of the questions that I have. And I think, the expectations are, let's strive for a 10 here. And if the 10 can be done with less plantings in the proper locations with the right mix and the right support, whether that be mulch, whether that be ground cover, those are the type of things that I think we need to hear from Garrett on. And, if the whole site, and there was very little lawn area, was going to be, large blankets, and now we end up with a few smaller blankets and maybe some lawn and some mulched areas, I think that's something that works. In regards to the snow and the plowing, there's a snow storage plan that was approved. If the snow storage plan is followed, there shouldn't be any issues with the plantings. So I would recommend that that plan be adhered to, the snow storage plan. And if it's okay with the board, I'd like to hear from Garrett on those couple things that I floated. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, just tell me that. But I'd like to hear on that those matters I just raised.
Yes. Good evening. I have been out on site several times, and I have been out on the site over the past 2 years, before, during, and of course after the plantings. What I have noted, I would definitely not put any more trees on the site. The initial landscaping plan showed that some of the trees were even in the landscaping beds in between along the access drive. In those areas, I would not recommend a tree just because there's no room for growth. It would be up against the entrances to the condos, the back entrances, the rear entrances. Secondly, and also I saw them up further up the driveway, which would impede the line of sight for vehicles leaving the property. One thing I've noticed is the way in which the access road is laid out in a half circle or kind of a wide U structure. So there's been some delivery trucks, and I've been there when I've seen the delivery trucks trying to make the turn, which is where some of the plants were proposed. It's very, very difficult if you put plants at that location to make the turn. And also where the driveway, where the plow hit, this is on the western side of the access drive. When you come down the slope, it's relatively a straightaway. And as you enter the apex of the turn, that's where the plow took out a couple of the bushes. When I met Stephanie on site, I also recommended putting a couple of, or at least have the plow company put up a couple of markers so that doesn't happen again in the future. In regards to the shrubs, whoever designed this plan, I wouldn't necessarily agree with. The shrubs were planted on 2 feet or 3 feet on center. And what I found were some of them were sweet pepper bush. They can grow to 12 or 14 feet high and about 6 feet wide. So you can imagine if they're planted 2 to 3 feet on center, it wouldn't be good. But because of the road salt, all of them have perished. Some of the American cranberry bushes also perished. A lot of the rhododendrons have perished. A lot of the ground junipers have perished. And there were a few false cypress. They have also, most of those have perished. And I believe this is because of the road salt. The bulk of them are either along the driveway in the planting areas by the back entrances to the condo units, and also along the front sidewalk. As far as there is additional space though that was initially for planting. There's a section in the back where there is parking for guests. And that area, which was a larger planting area, that area is currently fenced in. It looks like, I believe it's part of one of the condo units areas. So we've lost several planting areas, and I wouldn't say that was at my client's, fault. The way in which the site was laid out, and he did make improvements with the walls and as far as planting beds. And I will tell you, in some of these planting beds, I like to keep a 18 to 24 inch spacing for the herbs. Some of them are 12 inches apart. Even some are less than that, and they're planted almost on top of each other. Now, there have been a few of the plants that have died as far as the shrubs, which, a handful of them could be replanted. Some of them were too close together, and I would actually recommend going with, if that is the case, with the bearberries, such as the creeping juniper. They're more salt tolerant, and inkberries for, say, like the rhododendrons. And those are the things that I could see replanting or replacing. As far as more shrubs, I don't foresee really the space unless you start ripping up the lawn. The beds are mulched, most of them, except some of them have been ripped up by the gas company, as George pointed out. And in those areas, those are the only places where there aren't a ton of plantings. There are spaces 55, 62, and 108 inches between the existing herbs. And you can see the dirt in between, and it's for the gas line. So that's out front along the sidewalk. So those areas are still open. As far as the plantings along the front of the buildings, I would say the densities of those shrubs are perfect. If you go any higher, you're going to put the shrubs too close together. In a couple of years, you're going to start to get burnout if you're cutting them all the time to keep them manageable. They cover, and the densities are good. They're anywhere from 36 to 42 inches apart, and the shrubs are all 3 to 4 feet or larger in height. So we have a very dense, pretty dense cover right now, and any little bit will fill in along the fronts. The only areas, like I said, could be up front in the beds where the gas company altered the landscaping beds. And in those areas, I would say I would use the hostas and daylilies to keep in the theme with the other beds. And also because of the drought and the salt issues, they appear to be a little bit more salt tolerant. So does anybody have any questions?
I just have a question regarding the salting on the site.
That's my question too.
Would that, just given the proximity to the river, would that have been a condition of the Conservation Commission permitting or any permitting we did that would not allow for salting on the site? And should that be, I guess, relayed to whoever is managing the snow removal for the site?
If I could address that, I think what we're talking about is, we are not salting the site, but what inadvertently happens is there's heavy salt on sidewalks, roadways that do get tracked back into the site. You're never going to prevent the heavy salting of that main street. So I think that's really where the salt is being entered into the site, is through sidewalks and the roadways. Naturally, cars enter and exit the site, so you do get some amount of salt, but there is not salt being used at the site per se.
Okay, thanks for that point of clarification.
And just one more thing, if I could, I'd like to address Mr. Baker's concerns about precedents, and I fully respect and understand that. However, I think what we've had the benefit here of doing is actually implementing a plan and letting Mother Nature really dictate for us as to what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I certainly respect the fact that, is it setting precedents? Is it a bad precedence to set to allow us to plant less? I don't think it's a financial constraint from us. I think we've demonstrated through the extensive amount of the extensive amount of improvements outside of the landscaping, such as granite walls and things that weren't even accounted for, but we did that because we like to do the right thing. But I don't think it does set a bad precedence, because most times, given the location of this site, it was very difficult. Obviously, during the planning process, we came up with a very elaborate landscape plan, which on paper looked great. And Member Baker, I know you're an architect and you know this as well as anybody. There are changes that are field related. So as you move through a project, you start seeing that, well, this looked good on paper, but it's really not functional. I think our goal is to really, this exercise that we've done with this plan thus far has demonstrated that this land really doesn't seem to be able to support what that original plan was. So I think the original plan was defective to some extent, and it was defective because if this wasn't such a main road, and we all know what Elm Street looks like, in the morning or the afternoon, it's dead stop traffic. So this is really an urban site. I think that landscape plan was more designed for a much less congested area. So I think that's part of the problem. So I just wanted to address it. I definitely understand your concerns about precedent, but I don't think this sets precedent. I think what it does is it just tells us kind of, that this plan as proposed is not viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Baker, did you have any other?
No, that was pretty much it. I just want to make sure, that everyone's kind of happy and there's a happy medium here to solve the plan versus what's installed. And I appreciate George's comments greatly. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Member Grove?
No, ma'am.
No comments. All right. So I guess if we have a recommendation, Melissa, I saw that you had sent a staff recommendation letter with some different items. You had updated comments and a staff recommendation. Are we looking to kind of move forward with that, or what's the direction we need to provide or would be helpful for us to provide tonight if we could?
I did prepare those recommendations. The plan, I was working with George. I got the plan Friday. I didn't get Garrett's letter till, I don't know, 10 minutes before the meeting or something like that today. So I didn't have a chance to look at that. Again, I went back to March and I pulled the minutes from March. We talked about 50 to 60%. I'm just doing simple math. If the board thinks that that's too much, I would default to the board. If the board doesn't think the site can support that, there's definitely areas along the front that could support some more plantings, and there's definitely areas along the common boundary with 245 that could support more plantings. I really would like to have some direction for the board. I'd like them to vote this evening. I really got to get this. This has to be finished up. This is hanging around. It's an old project. I'm holding bonds. I want to get as-built plans. And frankly, I want George to have some clear direction with some finite drop dates, because this kind of stuff, frankly, shouldn't be lagging, this far beyond and involving the association and whatnot. It's becoming very cumbersome for him and for me too, frankly. So, I have my recommendations here. Am I going to be heartbroken if the board, votes something else? That's what the board is for. I'm just here to make a recommendation, and my recommendations, as I had stated, was based off of this discussion about 50 to 60% of the plantings that we spoke about in March. Are there areas that can support more plantings? I think there is. I'm not a landscape architect, but again, if the board is, as I had mentioned, the design was a blanket design, a very lush, a very textured design with varying species and a lot of ground cover. So it's really a different design. There are lawn areas that can support plantings. I guess the question is, does the board feel as though it's necessary? And what do we want to do about, those are the two things that I need. What are we going to do about adding additional, if anything? And then what are we doing about all this ground cover that essentially, instead of grass, they had just tons of cover. All those areas, near the roadways, maybe it was done for protection, so that the grass didn't get destroyed. It was the entire perimeter of all the drives all along the street was covered in that. And maybe Garrett, is that used for protection of the ground? I'm assuming it provides some protection.
The way I look at it, there's also, Melissa, a few areas where people are walking, like that we put the mailboxes now where some of the plantings are supposed to be a tree before. The way people are coming in and out of their units, just some of the pathways by the public. And honestly, looking at the lawn area, look at the slope and the way water runs down that slope. I think the best thing is to have grass along at least the eastern end, and along the areas along the driveways, I think should remain grass. The only areas you could say is to take more of the lawn in the front. But again, I think it's going to be more maintenance for the association. And I think that's a concern of theirs. So you may want to take that into consideration as well. Looking at what's there, I do believe the plants that are dead can be replaced. And I think that you could add more because there's areas where it looked like there were plants George had planted, but have been taken out. So we're probably down 30 or 40 herbaceous, perennials that could easily be planted in those locations. So there are a couple areas where you can make up some bit of the numbers, but it's the herbs.
Garrett, thank you for that. If I may, Melissa.
I just want to do some quick math, George. I mean, if you look at what you just said, Garrett, about we know there's 48 dead, and then there was about 30 or so taken out. So if to get to 50%, we're looking at 100 more plantings, and that's, you just described 70 of them. So are we talking about the same thing here? Because if we are, let's move this.
If I may just interject, I mean, this has become a more arduous than I believe it needs to be, quite frankly. Honestly, I mean, look at, Melissa, you say you want to move things along. I sent you a memo back in June asking for permission to make modifications. In your staff report,
George, I'm not going there. You gave me the plan Friday, not going there.
Here's what I'm going to suggest, folks. I'm going to suggest you folks take my surety. I'm done with this conversation. This is arduous. This is no need of this. I have a landscape architect that is just given testimony that the land won't support it. We're trying to work through this process. We've been trying to do this for the longest time.
Mr. Clement,
May I
If I
finish?
may, though, I think we're hoping to move forward with this, and I think the question was just if we were to replace dead plantings and possibly maybe repair where National Grid had damaged, and we were looking at some number that was around 100, we're trying to put this, we're not, certainly, I don't think anyone's looking to hold you to the original plan, but trying to meet in the middle somewhere, based on the conversation tonight. I think the question was just, is 70 to 100 plantings to mend what is dead or missing, would that be agreeable? I mean, it's just the number of plantings, it sounds like, and just a decision on the trees, which, I'm looking towards Mr. Tennyson's recommendation. He's the expert on what can survive and how much space plants need. And I'm not really thinking that we need to add lots of plants here, but we want to get it done as much as you do. And we're just simply asking if 70 to 100 plants was reasonable, or if you're just saying no plants at all.
No, I think honestly, I'm certainly, and I said earlier in the conversation, I'm happy to do it. I'm just looking at this and I'm saying to myself, who is, Melissa, does the gas company have a bond, or am I going to go ahead and start paying for the gas company? Who enforces the gas company? I mean, 70 to 80 plants. I don't. Okay. Well, apparently somebody needs to, because they came in, dug up a lawn, took out all the plantings, and here we sit.
The council gives them permission to open the street, George. So I would address that through those means.
I understand. Well, look, at board members, I apologize if I seem frustrated, but I think we all agree we want closure on this, and let's not lose sight of the fact I have a considerable amount of money tied up in this project under bonds and things like that. I'm trying to do the right thing with the community. I want to work with the community. I've shown that time and time again, just recently by pulling a 40B off the table. I'm trying to find a way to move forward. I want to work with you folks. I've demonstrated that time and time again. And I understand that there has to be some measurement of percentage, but I think we're glossing over the issue that it's not just about plants, it's landscape features. Those are features that actually enhance the beauty of this project. But at this point, I would say that I'm open to whatever the board suggests. I'm happy to do it. But I will also say that part of my frustration is I tried to do this in June. We've lost another season. I've got a lot of money tied up here. I've been nothing but proactive. But at this point, I'm gonna stop talking. But I'd ask the board to take its vote. Just give me direction. Tell me what to do, and I'm happy to do it. I just need to be done with this situation. I appreciate everybody's help. Thank you.
Mr. Clements, thank you very much for that. So I think what it sounds like, if we could get, I think it's a little challenging to put a number to a percentage personally, 55% or number of, I think, and I don't know, Melissa, if this would be a way to do it, but if we, the 50% was around 100, 70 to 100, somewhere around there. If we could do it such that we could write the recommendation such that it was, maybe it's a percentage that equates 70 to 100, or maybe it's a percentage that replaces and adds a little bit. But if we could also have supporting that modification, just a verification / recommendation from Garrett, just, saying why, why the site, I mean, I know that he did provide a letter stating the observations, but I didn't see a recommendation as part of that letter. So if there's any way to say, we're going to do whatever that number is, or maybe it's not even, just the maximum extent practicable of new plantings, which includes replacing the dead ones and filling in a couple spaces to get us closer to that number. And he provides a letter saying, this is the professional recommendation from someone who is a plant specialist. That would be, I feel like, something that would allow us to move forward and have the backing of what is workable for the site. So I don't know if that would be agreeable to some of the other board members or how that might look, but that's kind of, I think, might get us to where we want to be.
That's fine with me. Again, I would default to the board. I was just trying to do some quick math. We got 48 dead. We talked about, you know, if we're talking about the same numbers in different words, then let's, you know, if it's not going to be a number, if it's going to be suggestive, I would recommend 50 to 100 with Garrett, you know, looking at that, and we can even meet out in the field. That's probably going to take care of what's dead. And that's probably going to redistribute a few things in some areas that could support those. And whether those are, if the board is going to work towards that, I just want to make sure the motion's clear. I want to make sure everyone understands. I don't want any, you know, that's not what they said, that's not what they meant, that kind of stuff, because it's just got to get, it just has to get done.
Yeah. Was there any input that you needed on trees? I noticed one of the, I think it seems like we're all right on trees with the additional 6 to 7 that are going to be planted on the property line, but is that, we're good on trees?
There was 22 approved. They planted 10. George in his letter in June suggested 6 or 7. They want to try to screen 245. I think that's fine, adding those 6 or 7. That was in the first recommendation.
Yes, I just wanted to capture that. So we had the first recommendation was the trees. The second was some percentage or number of plantings, which maybe we can say is 50 to 100 if other members are in support of that. And then we would also include with that just a letter of recommendation support from the landscape specialist, planting expert.
I can meet Melissa out on the site if she's available, and we can walk and take a look at it, because I think what we're going to see is we can replace the dead plants, and then there's probably another, say, 30 or 40 spaces left for the herbaceous, and I think that's going to be what there is.
So he's talking 90. I'm talking 100. We're talking the same numbers in different languages here. So
yes, and I think a couple of them that I had identified for replacement, some of them I think may best not be replaced, and I want to. We should look at that in the field, Melissa, and we can talk about that just because of where they are, and you can see people have stepped on them and they're in the way of traffic, a couple of them, or in the way of vehicles. So, but it's going to probably be what, at least 60, 70, something like that is what it's probably going to be. And I think you need to get out and see this and take a look at it in the field. That's what I would suggest.
That's fine.
Okay.
So maybe we can leave it as a range of plantings, along with a verification that the maximum extent practicable plants have been installed.
Yeah, and I think we can meet with Garrett, and he's going to show what they are going to be and where they're going to go, and then that's going to be given to whoever is going to be putting in the landscaping, because this is going to be a very strategic placement in the spring. And that will be the new record landscaping plan. The landscaper will have that. Once the plantings go in and these other punch list items are taken care of, we can release the money and move forward.
I agree with that. I have no problem whatsoever with that. But one thing I would like to know is, how do I pursue the gas company, or is it my responsibility to pursue it? Who manages that process? The homeowners association isn't going to plant them, and now I'm stuck with a decision from the town to allow them to tear up plants. Is that my responsibility? How does that factor in here? Can somebody suggest how I should pursue that?
Mr. Clement, I have heard in the past, if it's not through town council, I think maybe state reps have connections with gas companies. I know there's, Ms. Taub has a recommendation perhaps.
Chair, if I can suggest, George, why don't you, Jim Arsenault, who I think is on this as well, Director of DPW, and myself connect, not tomorrow, but Thursday or Friday. We can figure out what's going on with the gas company and get the appropriate contact information to get that issue resolved, so it's not a problem in the future.
That sounds good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, folks. I'll wait for your direction, and we'll follow your direction.
All right, so it sounds like we just need a motion to kind of move forward with the discussion that we have. If any board members are in disagreement or have any other further comments, but it sounds like we have a direction to move forward in. And hopefully we can get to the finish line here.
You need a motion?
I think I need a motion.
Okay, so the motion for the minor modification for planning board file 15 16 as discussed at this meeting is approved.
Can I get it? Is there any seconds to that?
Oh, Jim.
Right. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
Yes.
I myself am also a yes. Thank you, staff and applicants, for sticking with that one. Much appreciated. Let's finish it up.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
All right, next on the agenda is first continued public hearing scheduled to start at 7:15. We're a little bit behind the schedule, but it will be for 360 to 400 Wood Road, Planning Board File Number 20-05, Special Permit and Site Plan Review. HRP Wood Road LLC is the applicant. If we first just get a staff update on where we are at. I believe this might have been Director Stickney's project. I can't recall, but I know she's not here tonight, but maybe we can just get a brief update, and then also from the applicants can speak after staff's update.
Yes, I'd love to, Madam Chair. This is the director's project. She has updated both Connor and I yesterday. We had a meeting to go over these projects. Christine has issued the draft conditions. She's shared those with the applicant. There was some back and forth and some updates based on a few things. And the revised conditions that she had sent out to the board, I believe it was late last night, is what is on the table this evening for consideration.
All right, thank you. So after last month's meeting, looks like the applicant and the director Stickney have worked through some draft conditions. I'm not sure if there is anybody from the public that is here to speak on behalf of this project, so I'm just going to look to the participant box. I'll just keep an eye on that. If staff can also help me keep an eye on that in case anybody has any questions. But again, this project is a renovation to the Haymanetics building, along with some parking lot renovations, some drainage improvements. There was Conservation Commission permitting, which I believe is already complete. So Member McCamey, do you have any questions, comments regarding this application? Do you want to have the applicant give a rundown at all of what?
Yeah, well, that was going to be my first thing. Is there any update from our last meeting? For example, have you identified potential tenants?
Who do we have here from the applicant's side?
I'll start off. Thank you, Ms. Joyce, members of the planning board. For the record, and again, it's good to see you. My name is Jim DeVellis. I'm a professional civil engineer with DeVellis Serene, and we're providing civil engineering, permitting, and landscape architecture services to HRP Wood Road LLC, otherwise known as Hilco Redevelopment. And there's probably 5 or 6 members of that team on this Zoom call tonight, owners, architects, and council. As discussed, we were here on the 13th and we gave a presentation. I have all that background if you need it. But if you've got questions more on tenants and future tenancy of the building, maybe I can hand it over to somebody from Hilco and they can give you an update on that stage.
Hi, this is Andrew Chusid with Hilco Redevelopment Partners. Look, today we don't have any tenants officially identified. We've fielded a tremendous amount of inquiries and tours, but we have not received any commitments yet.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Tied into that, the reason I ask is, and I can't put my finger on it, but maybe Melissa knows, is what we decided about traffic studies, depending on the type of client that may potentially occupy that building, whether it's to start with or some sort of changeover. So if Melissa is there, where are we keeping, I couldn't find it in the conditions, but are we keeping that in, that additional traffic study may be necessary, just like we would do on many other projects, quite frankly?
So yes, if I may, and Christine, we had spoke a little bit about this, and it's when you don't have a tenant, it's difficult to project your traffic and your traffic patterns and your trip gens. So the way that the decision is written is that it's going to remain a research facility. And if that changes, something's going to need to be looked at. I mean, warehousing, manufacturing, all of those uses require a special permit anyways, which have not been requested or granted as part of this approval. So depending on what the ultimate mix of tenants or the end game one tenant results in, we can take a look at that and take a look at the R&D use and make some determinations on what are the changes in the trip generation pattern is going to be based on that change in tenants. So, or users, I should say, depending on the use. So Christine has written this for research and development, and based on what they end up with, they may need special permits, and they may or may not need to do additional traffic studies and investigations.
Okay, and Melissa, was Christine okay with the landscape plan as well?
She didn't mention that she wasn't, so.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't mention that she wasn't.
Okay, and I know last time it was brought up, but since there's no occupancy, there was no issue about signage yet, so we have to kind of put that aside for right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any other questions, Madam Chairman.
All right, great, thank you. Member Downey.
I just had one comment or question in condition 43. Every reasonable effort shall be made to screen the equipment that's rooftop equipment, mechanicals. Is that, Melissa, is that standard, what we put in there for language, reasonable effort? Or Nicole, I saw Nicole raise her hand.
Sorry, I raised my hand and I don't mean to interrupt Deputy Director Santucci. I spoke with Director Stickney specifically about that provision, and I know I may have been slightly more involved than Melissa was on this. There was some concern about a cost prohibitive nature, and so Director Stickney and I agreed that reasonable efforts was sufficient given the location of the property and its elevation, that the need to screen might not be as significant as it is in other properties. And so she was satisfied that reasonable efforts, given the circumstances that we're dealing with here, would be satisfactory.
Okay, is that building, is it visible from 128?
Yes, but depending on what they do and where they punk, if this turns into a lab, it's going to look like it's going to have several puncturings and different things coming out. So depending on where that is in the building, depending on what they're doing in that lab, that's really going to dictate what's going to be puncturing up through the roof. And things can be positioned, as we've worked with other applicants in the past, to not be visible. So obviously those types of things would be something that would be looked at, when in fact they've identified an end user and what they actually need for equipment coming up through the roof.
Okay, thank you both. I don't have anything further.
Great, thank you, Member Downey. Member Baker.
Yeah, no real questions similar to Member McCamey, just, based upon the unknowns, obviously going to have to potentially come back to us, and the project seems okay at this standpoint, but, just kind of bear with us if you do have to come back to us, and you may have more steps to obviously take. So no more questions or comments from me.
All right, great. Thank you. Member Grove?
No, ma'am.
All right. I don't think I have any other questions or comments. Is this project filing, or is Mr. DeVellis, is this project filing a stormwater permit with the stormwater department, or where? I didn't see, I didn't see that in the correspondence.
Yeah, what we did is the first step, coincidentally with our first hearing with you, we were in front of the Conservation Commission and they voted favorably on this. And they looked at the stormwater and the reports and there's some conditions on their request for determination. And then when this went through all the staff, we got all positive staff letters and feedback in the file on this. And one of them was from the stormwater manager, Cynthia O'Connell. And she asked for a couple additional notes and precautions on the plan, which we did. But there's no formal submission to a different entity than what we've done.
Do you know if, and just a point of curiosity, was it a minor stormwater permit or a major stormwater permit or neither?
Neither.
All right, so the applicants have had a chance to review the draft conditions as prepared by staff. Is that correct? Or are you guys familiar with them, okay with them? Any comments or thoughts regarding the conditions?
Madam Chairwoman, Brent McDonald from Nutter Legal Counsel to the developer. We have reviewed the conditions in the most recent draft that was circulated to us this morning, which I understand is what was circulated to you folks last night, and those conditions are acceptable to the applicant.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to check the raising hand area on Zoom to see if anybody from the public is wanting to speak about this project. Otherwise, if I don't see anything, I think we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing. I don't see anything. Staff, do you see anything on that end? I don't see anything.
I don't, Madam Chair.
All right, with that, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, great. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
Yes.
I myself am also yes. All right, so that closes the public hearing. Next, we need to enter into the record correspondence through, I guess it would be through today's date or yesterday's date. What was the last date on correspondence?
I don't even have the correspondence list. Hold on, let me see if you have it. No. I don't have that material. I would say
right.
since the conditions were updated today, I would say today.
Yep, that was going to be my recommendation. So can I get a motion to accept into record correspondence through today's date, the 10th of November?
So moved. I'll second that.
All right, Member Downey seconding. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
Yes.
I myself also yes. All right, so anyone would like to make a motion with regards to this application?
Make a motion to approve the special permit and site plan review for planning board file number 20-05 that we discussed this meeting with the draft conditions I think were completed this morning, 11/10/20.
We have a motion to approve this application by Member Baker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Downey. All right, roll call. Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Grove.
Yes.
I also am yes. So, all right, well, thank you guys very much. Your application was approved. I would just touch base with Director Stickney after the meeting and she can kind of help you button up any loose ends on the staff's end to get this underway.
Great, thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you guys and all your staff, going back and forth. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night.
I appreciate it.
All right, next item on our agenda tonight is 128 Town Street, which is the Peterson Pool Project, Planning Board File 15-19. As you may recall, the Peterson Pool Project is before us on a major modification to special permit and site plan review for stormwater changes to the stormwater management plan that was originally proposed and approved by the board. We had a very comprehensive presentation, I think, in the last couple of meetings regarding the changes to the stormwater plans for the pool project. And at the conclusion of the last public meeting with regards to this, we had moved forward with a peer review for the drainage, and believe we have had the peer review completed, and we have that back. I think we also had some back and forth between the applicant, the peer reviewer, and the planning department. So if we could get an update on where we are at and just a summary of what's gone on between last meeting and this meeting, that would be great. I don't know if that would be the applicant or staff to update us, but whoever would be appropriate, please go ahead.
Very quickly, Madam Chair, I am going to not say much because I don't have much background. We do have other town staff here. Our Chief of Staff, Nicole, is with us. Deb Keller, who completed the peer review, is here as well. And also Phil Cadero, who is representing the applicant, Mr. Coquinos. So it might be helpful to maybe hear from the peer review consultant and then circling back from Mr. Cadero on any outstanding issues or things that may be in conflict, and then open it up to the board. That might be the best way to kind of just get the summary out to everyone.
I think that sounds great. Thank you. So if we could just get, if the peer review consultant could give us just an overview of what they did and what work has been completed on their end, that would be great.
Good evening, Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So we were assigned to peer review the modification for the stormwater improvements on the site. We did review the site plans dated September 21st, 2020. We did ask for a couple of revisions. So the current plan dates November 4th, as well as the stormwater permit request dated October 6th, which included an operation and maintenance plan, also dated October 6th. We also went back and took a brief look at the original filing from a stormwater perspective so that we could look at what the improvements, how they would integrate into any of the part of the development that's already been installed, primarily the outlet pipe. And we have reviewed the improvements with respect to the stormwater, Braintree stormwater regulations, as well as DEP stormwater regulations. The applicant has addressed all of my comments. There are just a few notes to be highlighted, which was that there was a discussion that additional soil testing would take place prior to the installation of Basin A, which is to the rear of the property. It's a new location for drainage on the site that was designed with the modification. So we just wanted to confirm the soil testing there. There was a reference to having some of the additional details with the subsurface chamber system that would be reviewed through the shop drawings, which is acceptable. And then the only other item that I identified was that there is a SWIP, a stormwater pollution prevention plan through EPA for this property and development, and it should be updated with these modifications as they move forward.
Okay.
That's helpful. That's where I stand.
Okay, great. Mr. Cordero, do you want to just chime in as far as on behalf of the applicant, as the applicant's engineer, just kind of either to reiterate what the peer reviewer had said or any updates on your end or anything like that?
Madam Chair, I can. Thank you for the record. Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, as you mentioned, representing Mr. Kokinos, the applicant. What Ms. Keller reported to the board is exactly what transpired. It was a good working relationship, a good workshop in terms of getting through the peer review process, and she kept Director Stickney involved the entirety of the time. So we were happy to work with her. We were happy to resolve all of the issues. And the few issues that she did note as outstanding of sorts, we're happy to comply with as things that we do need to do as part of the project. And we proposed those early on, which is confirmation of the soils below Basin A, because that was an additional stormwater area not originally contemplated. We will provide the shop drawings on the underground systems for record and review before they get fabricated and installed, and then certainly update the SWIP as Ms. Keller had indicated. So none of those are problematic to us. So we appreciate her attentiveness and her timeliness on this. We know on behalf of the town and the applicant, she was asked to do a lot in a very short period of time. And we appreciate very much what she was willing to do and produce the report here for the board this evening. So it went very well. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're on the peer review, I just want to touch base with members of the board in case there's any specific questions regarding the peer review. Member McCamey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, we appreciate the fact that the peer review was done so quickly, given the constraints. And I just wanted to ask Ms. Keller, did you happen to look at the original drainage plan as it was presented previously versus the current plan that was presented recently?
Yes, I did review both just to understand what the original design was and how the modifications would impact any tie-in points, as well as the rationale for the modifications. And understandably so, it looks from the soil investigations that Allen and Major did on the site. The site had to be raised because of groundwater conditions and the confirmation of the soil that they had in the area of the stormwater facilities sort of spurred the modifications to the drainage facilities on the site.
So as you looked at the two different plans, what I'm hearing is and don't let me put words into your mouth, that the original plan was deficient, really, almost by 50%, as we were told. And so consequently, this new plan should alleviate that. And of course, they're going to raise the level of the building a foot and so on and so forth. But would that be your general conclusion as well, that the original plan was, deficient and we needed to make these changes?
Yes, with the determination of where groundwater was, and the assumption where groundwater was in the original design, those were two different. So groundwater had raised, which raised everything on the site. And the soil conditions that were assumed in the original design were much more conservative than what was actually physically on the site and determined through soil infiltration testing that Allen and Major completed. So with those more detailed site information, they were able to refine the stormwater system for the site. So yes, the improvements are needed.
And so as you looked at the two, and here we are today, you've reviewed it. Do you feel confident going forward that we now have a plan and a design that will mitigate the stormwater and effectively allow us to have a building that's going to last, really? You missed all the meetings. My comment was, if the drainage fails, this project fails. And then, there's a lot of people that have been waiting a long time for this. We know what that area is next to Sunset Lake. So, you feel confident that we're gonna have something that's gonna last.
I believe the modifications that were made, it is a good design. If they do meet the standards and the DEP stormwater management standards as well for drainage facilities. So yes.
Okay, because that's kind of important to us.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that, engineers have different ideas about how things should be solved. Drainage is particularly troublesome, and which is probably why I try to stay away from it. But, clearly this is the #1 issue for this project. And, I appreciate the fact that because some of us who were on this originally, and I know some of the other members of the board who have certainly watched it over the years, we felt uncomfortable. And so we're looking essentially for a guarantee that this is going to work, because it just simply cannot fail, as I keep on saying. So it's 50% more. It's been changed in different directions. I feel 50% better. So let's hope that all our experts and the time that we've spent is going to be very worthwhile. So I appreciate your help and Mr. Cordero's help as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And also, given that this is a public hearing, I'm just going to keep an eye on, I'm going to not necessarily open it up to the public. It is open to the public, but if you have a question or you can raise your hand, just please put it in the chat or raise your hand on the panelists. I'll keep watching it to make sure we catch everyone who wants to speak as I'm kind of moving through the members. So don't be shy if you want to say something. All right, Member Downey, any questions or follow up on the peer review aspect?
No, just want to reiterate Member McCamey's statements about being thankful for doing this so quickly. I think we were here on maybe the 6th of October was our last meeting, and this has been done in just record time, and we're really appreciative of that. It gives us, I think, a level of comfort to go forward with this. I know there was some talk about going forward at the last meeting, but this is something that, as a board, when we're talking to our neighbors and seeing folks in public, that it gives us a great deal of professional comfort. So I want to thank you again for this. But no questions.
Okay, great, thank you, Member Baker.
Just to kind of reemphasize the comments by Member Downey, Member Kami. It was great to go through the peer review, just because if we did push it through last meeting, as Darrell McCamey got, that this project can't fail. So to spend an extra month for the lifelong of the building is time well spent. So I appreciate everyone's help on this to kind of mediate through a very complicated site, and also Mr. Cordero's expertise as well to kind of mediate what was going on. Originally we thought worked but didn't work, and it's nice to see that there's now a project to be worked upon and kind of get it going. So no more comments from me.
All right, great, thank you. Member Grove.
No, thank you, ma'am.
All right. Yes, I'll jump on the appreciation bandwagon. We've been talking about drainage at the Peterson Pool for a long time, and the site conditions did warrant a redesign, and here we are, and it sounds like we're all on board with a plan that's going to work. It's something that the town is going to be able to maintain. It meets the state stormwater standards. So I think this has all been very good, and everybody's been working diligently. So thank you for that. This Director Stickney was kind of leading the charge on this, and she's not here tonight. So I had seen a decision modification. I don't know if that's draft or what we're looking to do tonight, where that stands. So I don't know if Ms. Taub, if you have any insight on that from the applicant side, or what was kind of being worked through with Ms. Stickney, or if anybody on staff has that update.
Sure. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I also would express my appreciation to Ms. Keller as well as Mr. Cordero for working through this complicated issue and making sure we get this back on track and in the right and most efficient way possible. So Director Stickney, with the understanding that both Mr. Kokinos and I were interested in getting this voted on at this evening's meeting so that we could go back onto the site and continue with the work that had previously started. She worked tirelessly to get the draft modification over. It was provided to Mr. Kokinos and Mr. Cordero yesterday evening. I would defer to them if they've had a chance to review, but assuming or presuming there are no issues with that, we would be looking for a vote from the board this evening.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have Mr. Cordero or Mr. Kokinos? Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, or are there any different understandings?
Hi, this is Paul Kokinos, and nope, I've read through the approval and major modification. Everything looks good on it, and everything. You know, I read the whole statement that Christine sent over last night, and it all looks good.
Okay.
Pleased with the work they've done.
Okay. All right. So I am not, is anybody from the public, any neighbors or anyone wants to ask any questions or say anything? I'm not seeing anyone raising a hand. So I think with the absence of seeing anybody wanting to speak, I think we can, we have to close this public hearing, correct, first?
Yes, Madam Chair, and just to follow up, Christine has prepared the draft conditions. That's the document that you have in front of you. There's a few little blanks that need to be filled in here and there, but this is pretty much the meat of it. I believe those plan revisions that Phil was speaking about need to be incorporated, but all of the conditions, most of it was from the original decision and then obviously modified based on these updated plans and drainage design.
All right. All right. So Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion to close the public hearing by Member Downey. Is there a second by Member Grove? All right, good. Member McCamey?
Yes.
Member Downey?
Yes.
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Grove?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right. Do we have to do anything with correspondence on this one? Nope, we can just move forward with a motion. Chair will entertain a motion on the major modification to the Peterson Pool special permit site plan review.
So moved.
So we have a motion for approval with the revisions to the conditions as discussed tonight. Member Downey?
Yes.
All right, and we had a, do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second by Member Grove. Member McCamey?
Yes.
Member Downey?
Yes.
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Grove?
Yes.
I myself am also yes. All right. Sounds good. Thank you all for your time on that.
Thank you, members of the board.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
The next item on our agenda is 8 through 10 and 40 Arnold Street, Planning Board File 20-02, amended special permit and site plan review for Adams Street Enterprises LLC. Member Baker, I will be stepping away for this one, so you can step on up.
Okay. So we're going to open the public hearing for 8 to 10 and 40 Arnold Street, Planning Board File 20-02. It's the amendment of the special permanent site plan review, Adams Street Enterprises LLC applicant. Does the board in the say or the applicant here to present?
Good evening, Mr. Baker, members of the board. Brian Palmucci on behalf of the applicant, Adams Street Enterprises LLC. and Mr. George Lang, who's sitting next to me here. We're, as I think the board is well aware, we're here to seek approval of our redevelopment and improvement of the area of Adams Street, which has been the site of the Graziano cement plant for the past several decades. With me tonight, in addition to Mr. Lang, is Chi Man, Garrett Tunison, and Anthony Andronico. And what I'd like to do this evening, with your permission, is provide a brief update on the project and then turn it over to Chi Man for further presentation on some changes that we've made to the plan. So if I may proceed. As you know, what we're seeking to do here is to create a first-class, to construct a first-class commercial development that we call Riverside Business Park on what is now the concrete plant. Since we were last before you, we have made changes to our proposal after working with the town and the peer reviewer, the peer review consultants. The changes all revolve around compensatory flood storage issues on the site. And as a result, or as a solution, we've agreed to demolish the existing two-family home on the site in order to provide additional flood storage at grade. And Mr. Mann will go through that in more detail. The area in question is right at the intersection of Arnold and Adams Street, where the flooding originates onto the site. And it's due to an undersized culvert that runs underneath Adams Street right there on each side of the river. Essentially what happens is the water comes rushing down, it hits the culvert, it overflows Adams Street and kind of comes down Arnold Street. With our proposal and the changes that we've implemented in this design, the water will now go directly back into the river at the location where the two-family currently sits, which is right at that intersection. With the loss of that structure, the two-family, by demolishing that, we have sought to add an additional commercial structure totaling approximately 9,000 square feet, which would be additional warehouse space toward the middle of the site. That would essentially replace, or not essentially, would replace what we've previously designated as Building C, which was a pre-existing 1,300 square foot office space. So again, she will walk through that in a moment in more detail and show you what it looks like on the plans. We also have with us tonight our LSP, Anthony Andronico, who can provide a status update on the environmental issues at the site, and then Garrett Tunison here to answer any questions about the restoration plans. Lastly, I just wanted to let you know where we stand currently in terms of plans and peer review, because there's a lot of moving parts to this project. The revised site plans that we'll discuss tonight, again, they're a direct result of the input from staff and the peer review consultants. These updated plans have already been peer reviewed, and that report was received by the town on Thursday. We were before the Conservation Commission on Thursday to discuss it in part. There were some comments in that peer review and questions in that second peer review and questions that we'll be submitting a formal response to in the next week. We'll do so by November 19th. I also believe that Mr. Paradis from Beta is here tonight, the peer reviewer. So along with those responses to the second peer review, we'll submit updated lighting plans, landscaping plans, and architectural plans. We have been holding off on updating those plans as we were in the middle of the second peer review at the time. We thought it would make more sense to receive the input before submitting another round of plans so that we could incorporate that input in the plans that we'd be providing. As far as traffic assessments, as you may recall, we discussed traffic as it relates to this project and the traffic study that was conducted by Vanass and Associates in detail at our last appearance before you. And our plans, our plans have been subject to an initial peer review. The presentation that we made and went over was peer reviewed. This morning, we filed an updated traffic assessment and report that responds to the initial peer review that the board has been presented with, and also incorporates traffic analysis of the changes to the site plan that we'll be presenting to you tonight. So I suspect that that will be sent out for an additional peer review soon. It's our hope and expectation that we'll be back before you at your December meeting with all of the peer reviews completed and with all of our responses to any questions that the board members have, and any comments and questions that staff and the peer consultants have raised throughout the peer review process. So that's kind of where we are. And if I may at this point, turn it over to Mr. Mann, who will walk you through in more detail the design changes that we have made since we were last before you.
Melissa, you have something to say?
Yes, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out for the record, we do have Phil Paradise here from Beta Engineering. He is the planning board's peer review consultant, and I've asked him to be here this evening to just give an update as well as to where they stand. I think that that can be completed after we hear from the applicant's team.
Okay, good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Chi Man from Hardy Passman Design Group. We are the record civil engineers on this project. And if I may, I'd like to share my screen when I'm doing this presentation. I'm just waiting for permissions right now. Everybody can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, it's just the existing condition of the site. It's the existing, well, it ceased operation right now, but the existing site showing the concrete plant and the widely disturbance of the site. Again, Mr. Pamoji has this give a brief presentation earlier to talk about describe what the changes are, and I'm going to show that on the site plan to the board. Basically, let's go right up to the plan view here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So in response to the peer review comments, one of the major items we go back and forth is how we describe the flood storage compensation volume. There were some disagreement, but we go back and forth and we come up with a solution, is to demolish the existing two-family house right near the intersection of Adams Street and Orange Street here. And in doing so, what we have done is lower the grade in this area, and also with the grading, we was able to create almost like a swale to a low point of Orange Street. So as Mr. Pamoji described, the flooding cause in this site is due to the culvert, underside culvert under Adams Street. When the river, during heavy rainstorm and the river crest is over jump Adams Street and come down Orange Street. So our proposal, the latest proposal is regrade this area so the runoff, the flooding water jump the Adams Street, will come down Aaron Street and basically come to a low point and immediately drain right back into the river versus, in the existing conditions, the grade over in this area is higher. So the flood water will come in all the way around the site and more like even distribute into the site and drain right into the river. And it's more like a wider spread flooding situations. I think this layout is going to be dramatically improve the flooding into situation in the site. And again, to compensate the loss of real estate area, the two family what we are proposing right now is to demolish the existing building C, which is the small office building, is existing building, and replace that with a 9,000 square foot warehouse space with 2 different tenants at this point. So this is the major change of the site on the site plan. We also did number of changes in respond to the peer review comments, such as the retention system versus detention system, having the groundwater separations, and we adjust all those underground detention system per their recommendations. The detention system on the west end of the site, detention system number 1, 2, and 3 is going to be a line system. It's going to be providing detention only. It's no infiltrations. As we move towards the east end of the site, we are providing both detention and also infiltrations on the underground system, where we can provide better soil separations. That is pretty much the majority of the changes of the site. And with the drainage system, we did revise the system on regarding some invert inconsistency and the rim elevation and so forth. Those are all minor changes. But then the major item, I believe, Phil from Beta is here. I think we all agree that the flood compensation volume issue is resolved. And there's no change to building D and building E at all. The layouts pretty much stay the same. And as also late last week, we also received some of the staff report, and we will be revising the site plan on some minor items to address some of the snow storage and stumper enclosures, and so some of the minor issues that will be reflected on the revised site plan that's coming before the board in next week. That's kind of like an overall review of the changes on this site plan. There's any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mann. Does the public have any questions or comments, or the board have any questions or comments? Or the staff? Anyone raise their hand, Melissa or Connor? I don't see anybody in my list. Oh, we
I'm
got-
sorry, Mr. Chairman. We got 2 people with their hands up. We have Robert Kearns
Yep, and Steven.
and Counselor Sasha as well. Can you recognize them, Mr. Baker, or would you like me to?
If you could, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. You should be able to speak, Robert. You're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Robert Kearns from Pilgrim Road. I want to say thank you to the applicant for continuing to include the Riverwalk and the overlook. I think that'll be a great improvement to the river access. And it's great to see that that's still in. And it's good to hear that the dumpsters are going to be away from the river, mainly by the MBTA. Only concern that I want to bring up here, and it's been brought up by the conservation commissioners, some of them, is the concern about the block wall and whether the applicant is able to just remove that or grade it another way. There's like an ugly block wall along the river near where they want to do the restoration of the riverbank, and I just don't think it's, in my opinion, would make sense in a restoration just to put that block wall back. Maybe they could put a better retaining wall. There's a question at the Conservation Commission whether there'd be structural issues with the block wall. Apparently, they're going to have an engineer look at it, but I was just wondering if the block wall is still going to come back, or if they're going to have a different type of wall along the river, or just grade it. So I don't know.
I think that's still being looked at this time. I don't want to jump in, but I know that was addressed or raised at the conservation. I raised it in my staff report as well. And I think that's something that they're looking at again.
And I can say, Ms. Santucci, we actually had a meeting today to go over some of the material items that were raised by the Conservation Commission. That was one of them. We hadn't made a final decision. Today it was, okay, well, let's see what else we can do. Let's see, you know, as we're working with things on the site. If it's something that we can improve upon easily and economically, we will. If it's not, then we will do our best to justify why we can't. So, but to be honest with you, we just haven't made a decision right now as to what we're going to do there. But we appreciate and understand that the Conservation Commission asked about it and the staff has asked about it, and they've requested us to look to see if we can make that improvement. So we will do just that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Palmucci. I think Stephen Sasha is now up next to talk. Can you unmute him, Melissa?
Yep.
Thank you.
And we have one more hand up too,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman. Yep.
M. Riley, I think it was.
You should be all set, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I was calling in tonight to actually relay some questions and concerns about flooding in the area from some residents. And it's good to see that these issues are being addressed. I think at this point, what they have are more questions about stormwater management and whether the restoration of the river will impact anything in the area. So I think at this point, I would just, rather than ask for any more details or go into their questions, I would just ask if all of these revised documents and peer reviews could be put out on the website as soon as possible. That way they have a chance to review everything. And if they have follow-up questions or concerns, then they'd be ready for the December meeting. Thank you.
I believe the revised materials that were submitted, the last applicant submission was in, I think it was October 19th. Those materials were put up on the web immediately. So if there's any questions about that, we can follow up online, but I'm pretty sure they're up there.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. We have one more, I think it was M. Riley, I think, Melissa.
Hello, Michael Riley from Commercial Street. On the edge of that property where the two-family is, there is an overflow point where raw sewage is pumped into the river when there's high water. Has consideration been given to that? Because what ends up happening is that raw sewage goes into the river. There is a culvert under the Fore River Railroad that comes through behind my house and several others. That is a pond that fills up in the winter. When we have these occasions of very heavy rain every few years, especially for springtime rain, that raw sewage goes into the river. It ends up in this pond out back here. The stench becomes unbearable for several weeks. And that's hasn't happened, of course, with the drought, but I want to know if that's going to be addressed as part of the flood improvement in that area there.
If I may, just very quickly, Attorney Palmucci, for my own knowledge, I have discussed with Lou Dutton, he's the water and sewer superintendent here. We're aware of that overflow situation and he's weighed in. We have that in the public record that he's not concerned with the development on this site. They're actually significantly improving the stormwater runoff situation. And that is a situation where the runoff and the stormwater is so, the levels are so high that has to be opened up by the town and allowed to flow. And he has indicated that there are absolutely no concerns with that. So we do have that for the record if anybody would like to see that information from Water and Sewer.
Thank you, Melissa. And Attorney Palmucci, do you want to comment on Mr. Riley's comments?
No, I think Melissa's answer
Okay.
was much better than anything I had to say.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Is there anyone else? I don't see anyone else raising their hand. Oh, there one more? Nope, I think that's it. Unless Steve wants to speak again, I think I still see his hand raised. Counselor Sasha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go ahead and speak. I didn't mean to keep my hand up, but I will just add. So to Melissa's point, I did look at the October 15th documents that are uploaded, and they were pretty short. I think what people would like to see is all this new information that is being presented tonight, because it's a change to the project, as well as it sounds like some of the peer reviews are done, and I haven't yet seen any of that information online. And I think people would like to take a look at that, especially the traffic one. So if that can all be uploaded, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open it up to the members of the board to have any questions or comments. Member Downey, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. I'm looking at the traffic, the November 2nd traffic response review. And some of these numbers, we had George Clemenson earlier talking about Elm Street, and that is a parking lot every day, even during COVID. So you're talking about almost a 15% increase in traffic and daily volumes. And then currently 85% speed. So I guess, I want to make sure we talk about this further. I live in the neighborhood, and I've dealt with traffic concerns down here for a while, trying to get the town to do something about that. The speeds are outrageous. People cut through these streets like they're still on the highway. But you're talking about a substantial increase in volume, just under the 15% that the bylaw allows, according to this report. Am I reading that correctly?
If I could chime in, Member Downey, we had our initial traffic report, and then we do have Greg Lucas from Beta. He's our traffic peer. Him, myself, and the town engineer sat down and came up with a very long list of things that we've asked George to look at. And the responses and the items that we've asked him to look at, which are all mitigation items that will seek to improve the corridor, seek to improve flows, seek to move cars through that area in a more efficient and safe manner. All of those materials, I believe, are in what was submitted today. I personally haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
But what I'm planning on doing or hoping to do is I'm hoping to actually meet with the peer review consultant this Friday, if we can coordinate that, and really try to drill down on what their responses are and really put together an appropriate and responsive mitigation package that's going to address the items in the report. There is a substantial increase in daily volumes. There is an impact to the peak hours, but through mitigation and improvements, which the corridor welcomes them, I believe that we can reach a level that is not only going to accommodate the additional vehicles, but make the trip better for others also in the network currently.
Okay. I'll keep on top of that after you have that discussion, Melissa. Thank you. That was my only comment.
Okay, thank you, Member Downey. Member McCamey, do you have any questions?
I would suggest, Melissa, did we have the peer consultant here?
We do. We have Phil. He's waiting patiently, I see. And we also have Greg Lucas, who's traffic. There really isn't much new on traffic. As you see, we just received the responses today.
Right.
We're going to try to turn that around very quickly, but not for tonight. And Phil is here to give us an update. She has done a pretty good job with the update, but, you know, he's working for us and working for the board. So I have him here, one, to give another quick update, and two, if there's any questions that the board has on the stormwater the stormwater system, the compensatory storage, or any of those items, he can address those this evening.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we let him speak, and let's get some perspective from him. Phil, are you there, Phil?
Yes,
From Beta?
I'm here.
Yeah, on behalf of the board, could you give us, you know, some of your comments about your review so far?
Yes, so Phil Paris with Beta Group, we've been reviewing this for a little bit of time now, where we had an initial review. The challenge, as was reported so far, is that this site has been reworked over the years, and subsequent to or prior development on this site had a significant impact on the floodplain and flood storage in this area of the river. We had some discussion, and we had a good meeting a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. The plans were revised, which are significant relative to a number of areas. It will reduce the flood levels right at the intersection with Arnold and the intersection there. And it isn't perfect, but there's plenty of storage, additional storage provided, both upgradient and downgradient of the middle of the site. So we feel like that's in a good place. We did have a number of comments relative to stormwater management. And one of the big things we should probably make sure we emphasize is that it was classified as primarily an industrial site. Unfortunately, HydroCAD classifies that as 72% impervious. That the site is not 72% impervious, so we'd ask the engineer to reevaluate that, as well as a number of comments relative to the stormwater management. So it's a work in progress. We're expecting a revised set soon, so we can provide an additional review relative to that. So,
Sir, you know, we just went through a discussion on the pool at the high school, which involved drainage, and part of the problem there was an under calculation in terms of the imperviousness of the soil and everything. So could you expand a little bit? You know, because anyone who has experienced the flood on Adams Street does not want to experience it again. So could you go into a little bit more about, you know, does the site accept water? So is 72 good or bad? Is it going to be higher or lower in your opinion? And some of the plans that they had, you said the additional storage is going to mitigate some of the flooding around Arnold Street, you know, things like that. Because this is, in my opinion, besides traffic and the, you know, the density of the project, the you know, some of the key issues.
Yep. No, it is a significant. There was a significant quantity of flood storage that was impacted by the development over time, and we see that. We've done a pretty detailed evaluation. They actually have now a surplus of I don't know, close to 30,000 cubic feet. So it's that's a benefit. The opening of that area right at the culvert will channel the water again into the river, and then the on-site stormwater system itself. You know, we are going to review it in compliance with the stormwater management standards. And, so we have a number of issues that we'd like to see cleaned up prior to us giving a favorable review for this. So it is ongoing, but yeah, I don't think this project is going to make that flood situation worse. And for all intents and purposes, we should see an improvement there.
So I'm sorry, I was muted. So you're not completed yet. That's gonna.
No. There's our latest review. We had a number of. I mean, the applicant's engineer has been working hard, and it's a big project. It's got a lot of systems on site that they're proposing, and due to soil conditions here and there, and some playing around with where they can put systems relative to soils, contaminated soils, and groundwater elevations. They've got a difficult task, and so we're just making sure that they can comply with the standards. So
Okay. So just to be clear for everybody, we've just received more information about traffic that needs to be digested. The peer review is not done on stormwater, so we really can't continue on that. I do have one other environmental question. I don't know if this pertains to, but I read something, and maybe someone could answer it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I read that there's going to be some looked like a relatively small amount of material which is actually removed from the site, which has a variety of hazardous waste buried there. And I guess my question to whomever the applicant is, according to Mass Department of Environmental Protection, and I guess the EPA is involved, so this is all relatively standard practice to cover everything and to take out whatever we're going to take it out. So all of our environmental experts are satisfied that we're going to be protecting everybody by doing this.
Yeah, I can address that question. We've had our remediation plan reviewed on a preliminary basis by both EPA and DEP, and they offered some review comments, one of which was the desire to remove PCB containing soils above a level of 100 milligrams per kilogram. And there were 5 specific locations, five samples from 4 specific locations where that occurred. But by and large, that's not the concentration level we're seeing at the site. So they asked us to add that provision in, which we are doing in a revision for the remediation plan. With that change, at least conceptually, they're comfortable with the plan that we've put forward. Of course, the devil's in the details, so we have to get the revision into that, which also incorporates the changes to the northwest area with removal of the residents and a little bit more soil removal. So we're working on that change of plan to get their formal written approval, but we are expecting that the plan as we're preparing it is going to be approved.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Member McCamey. Member Grove, any questions?
No, sir, no questions.
Yeah, the only really question I have is just in regards to site plan. What actual floods? I know you're in AE, but what is the elevation of the AE in the flood zone that you're on here?
No, the famous question. What isn't the elevation?
Right.
Steve, do you want to address that?
Yes. Well, the flood elevation varies along the site, as I explained before. When the river crests over Adam Street, is follow the ground and come right into the existing site, go along with the existing terrains and go back into the river. It's kind of widespread. So it varies from 48 to as you step down the terrain from Adam Street towards to the east, the AE zone changed dramatically, you know, within a few hundred feet, stepping from 48, 47, 46, 45 in over course in a few hundred feet. So it was a difficult task determining on the flood elevation in that small section of site in foot by foot basis. At the end, we come up with the solutions, and that works.
Okay, so essentially based upon FEMA, on the FEMA maps, it starts at 48 and then varies to 45 throughout the site. It kind of steps.
I could share the plan, the 1993 plan, working plan that we used.
Yep.
You might be able to see it better.
Yeah, I see the datum lines. I was just curious if in such a small area that it varies, I guess, 4 different datum points in, you know, matter of hundreds of feet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been challenging, to say the least.
Because it looks, just looking at the site plan, it looks like that back corner where the warehouse, the kind of U-shaped warehouse is going, that you're doing a lot of regrading to get that down to level 48, where you have like 70 back there. I know you put in a large retaining wall, but one of the retaining walls, one point is 20 feet tall, which that's a real tall retaining wall. So I'm just curious of how some of these retaining walls kind of impact the water flow. If there were any water flow on site, hypothetically, how would some of these walls start to kind of create the Venturi effect through the building or anything?
So one of the item we discussed actually today about the wall situations. What we talk about is we are very concerned about removing all the Bronx wall because you know, we have to remediate all the soil. Any feet of grade change affect the remediations. So with completely removing the block wall, that is going to be very cost prohibit to the projects. And what we think we are going to do is when we do this riverfront remediations and all the restoration, we will be performing that work in sections, and we will have to open up some section of the wall to get access. And on those areas where we remove the block wall, we will regrade it, remediate the area and regrade it. So we will take those block away. But at this point, we are not planning to completely remove the block wall. And we are looking at different alternatives to, you know, make some beautifications on those areas where the existing block wall is.
Okay, and then
also opening a block wall is going to help improve the drainage to pass through the wall. And the on-site development, all the pavement and building is going to be collected by our new drainage system. So it's going to be collected by our drainage system and go through the detention on site before it's go to the outfall, release it back to the river. So it's overall going to be improve the stormwater management situations on the site.
Okay, and then some, just correct me if I'm wrong, but just as a point of clarification, a lot of these, I'm going to call them like kind of swales and kind of peaks and valleys, are a lot of them kind of man-made? Or are they something that was done just over time on site, or are they actual natural grading where you have a 70 to a 50, you know, over the course of a couple of feet? Like it's heavy, you know? So,
I mean,
it's a natural wonder.
Well, I'm just curious, like, is a lot of this stuff, is this what I think Daryl was getting at, that is some of these things that we don't really know what they are, and it's kind of, we're trying to, I know we're beautifying the site, which is great, but a lot of these are probably man-made kind of fill-ins of stuff.
Exactly. I mean, this has been a concrete plant, and also, you know, material come in stockpile and being reused. So it's the result of, you know, material coming in and out to create all these piles and swell.
Okay, got it. 'Cause it just, if you're looking at the site plan, there's a lot going on. So.
Mr. Chairman, it's not a 20-foot pile of contaminated soil.
No, that's right. That's what I was trying to get at. Like, what is it? Yeah.
Right. Any of the contaminated soil that's on the site is buried. It's there's a couple of spots over near the riverbank where some of the ASR is sticking up through the soil, but with the operation of the concrete plant, that's all material that they've brought in. They've moved around the site. None of it's being moved now because it was a moving target while we're doing all this. But those piles don't contain any of this contamination. It's all subterranean.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no more questions from myself. Is there any questions from Melissa or Connor or anybody?
I don't have any questions, just again, trying to sort of, I think, work to a goal of, getting a final set of plans that satisfy the peer review consultant, and are submitted in, a timely manner and a complete package, so we can turn that around. We have the Thanksgiving holiday. It's kind of an awkward time. So we've set some hard and fast deadlines for the team with some specific instructions. The peer review isn't guaranteed to turn it around. I know they're going to do their best. Everyone's working remote and in different places and whatnot. So I think George's team is dedicated on meeting those deadlines. And we're going to work with the applicant to really hold them to that. There really can't be any exceptions, as the timelines that we've given them already shrink down the time for everybody to sort of do their thing. And the floodplain stuff has come around. We really need to focus on addressing the other comments in the peer review. The existing conditions versus the proposed conditions. That's going to sway the system. That's going to have a requirement for additional drainage, depending on what those pre-development curve numbers look like. And then I guess the last thing, and one of the things I had raised in the staff report is, looping in the environmental portion of it as well. What's going to be moved, what's going to be taken off site, because as your question, Chairman Baker, about the floodplain, when you're working on a site with all these different elevations, every time you move something, you're digging a hole, you're creating that. So it's not just, we're going to regrade the site a little bit to comply, with the comments that came up. Every time you move something, you've got to create something for the storage. So, and it's been difficult. This is probably one of the most challenging sites I've worked on ever. Hence, the assistance of the peer review consultant. I can't even begin to understand this level of drainage. So understanding how complex it is, making sure we get it right the first time, and putting that time, energy, and effort into really perfecting the design to make sure, we've heard from the public about the flooding and the sewage overflow and whatnot, and we really need to make sure that those situations are not exacerbated at all from this development. We really want this to improve the area. The Riverwalk and the cleanup alone is going to be a massive improvement. And we just hope that all these other things fall into place and make it that much better.
Great. So with that being said, is this something that we should continue to December 8th, or is it something that's quick enough to get everything completed with the peer review, or?
Well, we're going to put it on for December 8th. Whether or not, we're there, we'll determine that at that point.
Okay.
But our hope is to be able to wrap it up on the 8th.
Okay.
If it's ready, it's ready. If it's not, it's not.
And do we want to give a definitive time? I know we have a couple other items that have been kind of slotted on the December 8th meeting. So do we want to put this out like at 7 p.m. or 7:15 or?
Yeah, I penciled it in for 7 p.m. Mr. Baker, we got back to doing these times. We'll we'll do them for the next meeting and then we can kind of just revisit that. Connor and I were just looking at the schedule and we have the 2 hearings that we continued tonight. And then we have Sitco is on as well. And then we'll have this matter. So we'll have the 1 thing from tonight, Sitco, this matter, and then we have a new public hearing, a grading permit, residential permit. So that shouldn't take up a lot of time, but I'd like to put this on for 7, and I'd like to take it up last on the agenda so that we have the remainder of the evening. Nobody's waiting. There's no pressure to move quickly. That way we can have the attention and time needed to get through the issues that night.
Okay, that sounds great. So with that being said, can I get a motion to continue this application to the December 8th meeting for 7 PM?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
And then all's in favor, Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes.
myself, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the last item we have is just approving the planning board meeting minutes from October 13th, 2020.
Yep.
Is that correct?
There's a motion from Downey to approve that.
Actually, I don't think that Christine has had a chance to look at those. They were sent out late yesterday.
Yep.
So if the board has read them and is okay with Christine's edits, we can approve them pending Christine's edits, or we can table them.
Yeah, we'll put a motion in if the board's okay with that, with Christine's edits to approve the planning board meeting minutes from October 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Here's a second.
Second.
All those in favor, Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Grove,
No, I'd prefer to see the edits first.
okay, and myself, yes.
And Aaron?
Oh, and Member Aaron. Member
Aaron.
I like it.
So that's 4-0,
Yep,
1, or
correct.
4-1-0.
Yep.
4-0-1. Then I just score it.
Kind
All right.
of.
Motion to
all right,
adjourn?
Yeah, I think that's everything, guys. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to seem
Second.
overeager.
Yep, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Roll call. Sorry.
Member McCamey,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Grove,
Yes.
Member Joyce,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, everyone.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.